She's riveted still.
There she is. There she is.
Greetings and felicitations.
Hello and welcome to Indefinite Lunch and Infinite Combinations number 132. I decided that I enjoyed For All Mankind so much that I wanted to have something like a wrap party for my reviews where I get to look at some production stuff that I ignored all the production stuff when I first reviewed this series because I was afraid of spoilers. So I didn't get so honestly, in one day, I didn't get too far in this endeavor for 4 whole seasons because much of the really juicy stuff seems to be buried deep in interview videos that you have to listen to so you can get the good stuff. So it would take a lot of time to listen to that, and yeah, I think yeah, that it could probably I don't know, and but anyway, I might go do that later after this because I like the show that much. But also on the agenda today, after we do that, is to look ahead to season 5, see who's been added to the cast, and make some predictions about some of the storylines based on all of the clues that we've been getting. Because one of the great things about this show is because all of the characters usually follow a certain path and different kinds of arcs, and exploring this alternate history is definitely turning much more into a science fiction show, which is also pretty exciting. And so we'll talk about the developments regarding that and the fact that it seems to be exceeding our technology starting in season 4, and I think that's going to just accelerate in season 5. And I appreciate the imagination that that's taken, with connecting what's the name of the person who he's an astronaut and he's a technical advisor on the show.
Garrett Reisman?
Yes, Garrett Reisman. Thank you, Philip. And he says that he's looking more towards keeping close to the physics since he doesn't have to worry as much about the history anymore. And of course, sometimes that's stretched for drama's sake. Phil can tell you how much that bothers me sometimes when regarding the duct tape and stuff. But
rule of drama. Yeah,
it makes for touching scenes at the same time. And what makes this series even more enchanting, though, is that close attention to detail gives us really the special effects just really make you believe you're in space. It makes you believe you're on Mars, the moon, wherever they want you to go. This show can take you there. But before I go any further, I'd like to introduce my guests, starting with Philip, he shows up from most of these streams, and thank you, Philip, because you really appreciate what NASA has done in our actual timeline, and you're really.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of space science fiction. I mean, growing up on Star Trek, Space 1999, Battlestar Galactica. I mean, it's kind of like, you're seeing this thing happen in this alternate timeline. You're kind of like, I wish this is the timeline I lived in instead of the one we ultimately ended up with. Because I mean, we're a little bit behind where we should be, at least where I would like us to be. But yeah, I've been sort of Jill's co-host for this For All Mankind review show, and I've been having to look back on everything and see everything as a whole, and I'm just more interested in seeing. I want to see this whole thing go 7 seasons. I want to see it. I want to even see a spinoff that's kind of sees it, where we are 100, 200 years down the line. Are we at that Star Trek future or not? And that's what kind of interests me, and so I hope we can kind of get into that a little bit.
Absolutely. You just hit on the conclusion of my live stream right there. That is exactly what I want to. And back for the second time to my channel is Robert Meyer Burnett, who thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, this is I mean, I don't get a chance to talk about this show enough. It's my favorite show on TV. And I think it's probably, there's some great, we're living in a time of riches when it comes to certain kinds of genre programming. I just wish some of the genre programming we had was better. And I think that this show is probably it's both. I mean, it's always been a soap opera, but it's always been the best science fiction show on TV. And
Oh,
the
yes.
funny thing that you get people who love science fiction, they watch it and they always complain
Yes.
about like the soap opera nature of it. I'm like, but that's kind of the point of this show. Like,
Yeah.
it's a show about people first. And what I
Mhm.
think people forget is when you have a serialized show in, modern storytelling, the soap opera nature of serialized storytelling is what keeps us going. I mean, I say soap opera so people understand, but call it serialized drama.
It's a space opera. Well,
Yeah, well, it
and
is.
actually, Margot says that all of what you're saying in her speech at the very end of season 4, in terms of how uh, what I've come to realize, of course, is that humanity gets in. Your life gets in the way of the science, and as much as you want to focus on that,
Yeah, and
you still have to live.
great science fiction is always speculative. It's always asking, like, it presupposes or makes suppositions about where we are and where we're going.
Mhm.
And Brian Aldiss had one of my favorite definitions. I'm paraphrasing. I always forget. Whenever I say this thing, I always forget it. And I always wish I looked it up first. But basically, what Brian Aldiss said is that science fiction is a format that is trying to make sense of our lives within our technological advanced confused state of knowledge, and it tries to make sense of human life within that context. And I think that that's absolutely true. And I think one of the great things about this show is it does everything. It asks the questions about who we are as people, along with who do we want to be. And as we move out into the stars, what kind of people are we going to become as we go there? And how can we leave our mistakes behind us, even though we really can't? And how can we make our better natures prevail? And I
That's
think
what's
it's
great about the show, is because it doesn't shy away from some of the more ugly aspects, but also still remaining hopeful at the very same time, which is
100%,
really great.
100%. And to me, I do think of this as canonically in my own headcanon,
Mm.
the beginnings of the Star Trek universe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And
because what I don't understand, and why the current producers of Star Trek baffle me, because I'm like, did you ever watch Star Trek? Star Trek never took place, or never was supposed to take place, in our past. It was
Yeah.
adjacent to our past, but it was an alternate universe like any other great alternate universe. I mean,
Mhm.
we didn't have the eugenics wars in the 90s, even though when they
Yeah.
were making the show in the 60s, they didn't know if we would. But the eugenics wars roots were placed back in World War II. It was all, but you have to have context for that. And
Mhm.
the new producers are like, well, we'll change it. We're going to try and push it forward. And I'm like, but if you push it forward, that means you've ruined the past of Star Trek, which is immutable.
Well,
It
wasn't
should
it
be.
J.J. Abrams that started that whole idea of like, oh, it's our future? Even though I understand the impetus for that, but
Well, certain
I mean,
writers
I'm
like
yeah, I'm like
Cox.
you, so
Yeah, I mean, that people like Greg Cox in his con books tried to
yeah.
reconcile our past with Star Trek, and I don't understand that. I mean, I've always loved to see, one of the great joys of For All Mankind is how they've woven in
Mhm.
our real past with their fictional present.
Yeah.
And the end, the music they're going to use to end each episode.
And
There's
speaking of Star Trek, I didn't exactly get to finish my introduction for you.
oh,
It's
sorry.
I just wanted to say you have made what has become one of my favorite movies, which is Free Enterprise, and I reviewed it on my channel. And in the comments, you said that you would have been here for that. So my only regret was not inviting me for that one.
Well, if I
Or
ever
else
get to
you
make
can
the
be
4K
inspiration.
recut of the movie, I'll invite you to the premiere. You can come to the premiere.
It's
Oh
one
my
of my
god!
favorite
Well,
movies
I
too.
don't know
So
if I can make it up, but
We'll
I'll think about it.
we'll fly you out. We'll put that in
Okay.
the budget.
'Cause I
so
definitely think this is oh,
Because I want to put it out.
just
What I want to do is with it, if we ever do it, because it's a forgotten film. It's hard to get, and the
mm,
only version you can find on Plex is a standard def 4:3 version that isn't my preferred cut of the film anyway. And
mm.
it's frustrating to not. Our executive producer is he's kind of locked it up for us, and I don't quite understand why. I'd love to get it. I think it would have more audience now than ever before. Although
oh,
I'd get canceled
definitely.
for some of the jokes.
No, no,
I mean, it's always
no,
been a
but
favorite
I
of mine.
also
So I don't know.
celebrated.
Well,
Just
no, thank you.
it's vital for any Star Trek fan if anyone hasn't seen it. It's very relatable, and of course, also you worked on the special features for Lord of the Rings and Star Trek: Next Generation.
Mhm.
So I'm just ecstatic that you're here today to
Oh
talk
yeah,
about
no,
For All
I
Mankind.
yeah. I
You're
mean,
one
this
of
show.
the first people, one of the many people who have recommended the show to me, and you actually did show so the last time you were here for Star Trek 4.
Oh wow, oh, that's yeah. Well, I didn't. I came to the show late. You know, I didn't watch the first season, and it wasn't until I don't know why. You know, I was busy or it, and somebody told me to watch it, and I've never. I mean, it was like finding the Tony Montana cocaine equivalent of a TV show for me. I couldn't watch it fast enough, and I must have watched that first season 4 times.
Mhm.
And then
Oh, yeah, that's my favorite season. I love the
and
first
the
season.
well this
I know I know the story gets more expansive and more creative as we go on, but it's the one that excited me the most, and I think it brings up tough questions. Well, like you already said about, just giving us maybe a blueprint for our future where it could go if we cared to listen.
well, it also is about people like I think we all want to be. You know, they're even the people that are like Dev or whatever. You there's people you like
Mhm.
and then you dislike and then like and then dislike and like. Like I obviously love Gordo Stevens, but he was hard to like for a while. He had his issues.
Right,
You
and
know,
so many gray characters. Nobody's, straight up evil or perfectly good.
but ultimately it's aspirational. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that I find that we live in a deeply I like we're kind of in a position in our lives right now, whatever your political affiliations are, I feel like everybody wants to drag us back 100 years. And it's frustrating to be at
Yes.
this point in my life. And you watch a show like For All Mankind, and there's a sector of society, the way that space became like the idea that it was genius in the show to postulate that NASA owned its own patents. Because in the show, NASA does own its own patents whenever it creates new technologies. And so much of NASA technology, space technology, filtered down through the rest of society. And if they had their own patents, they could have been their own self-funded agency, which I think in the show was a really great conceit. That for the most part, NASA was self-financing. And then, of course, it becomes more of a problem later. But I like that idea. And it's too bad that that wasn't. I mean, obviously, the government probably wouldn't have allowed that in our real world, but it was interesting that I thought that was a really interesting um, plot issue or plot point that they made early on in the series, because
Oh,
we
that
saw
it
like
was fantastic. They did achieve that at first, but then the government did eventually say, "Hey, we want some of that."
yeah, they did. They
So
wanted
they
that
couldn't stay
cheddar,
away from it.
but it was cool. But it allowed us to have cell phones and electric cars and things like that far earlier than we would have, because
Oh, yeah,
the industry
definitely.
Mhm.
regulation and that's something that I mean, you can't get people to agree because people are petty and stupid. Except
We
Well, I
us.
mean,
are, can we?
people don't want to have
We're
a discussion. They don't want to have a dialogue. They just constantly want to like cancel the other person and just like, no, let's have this discussion. It doesn't always have to be a war.
Philip,
Right.
that's what I was thinking. I was so inspired by For All Mankind this morning, just getting excited to talk about it, and then I see J.K. Rowling's getting sued for some tweets she made, and I'm like, "What? Ooh, that is just ass backwards." And
Yeah.
I'm getting upset about that. But also, I want to say hello to our wonderful chat here. The contributions you guys make in the chat are always very insightful and funny, and I always like to bring up some chats that get eaten by YouTube before the show begins. So that award goes to Part-Time Planting, who makes our first prediction for season 5, which is that Ed's gonna find the Fountain of Youth, which is it's funny, but also interesting because we are entering deeper into science fiction. So something like that actually probably could happen. But I don't know.
Hmm.
And also Matt G. Hello, Matt G is showing up with us today as Swift -1, which of course is a play on Godzilla -1. I just bought that on Blu-ray because I don't have a 4K player. Tristan
So
Mendoza
good.
says, "Yeah, it is." And hello to Tristan Mendoza. He says he can only stick around for a little while. Okay, so he's got to run some errands. But I'm glad I made it to the chat to say hello to you and hello to Lemon Pie, Deej Odyssey, Grill is Random Thoughts, And when we go to the stars, we'll still be the same assholes we've always been. Well,
Mm.
but maybe we'll have a different perspective, though. I don't know.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, a
well,
lot of
our
science
humanity will
fiction
stay
is,
with us.
yeah, I mean, humanity. I mean, that's kind of the thing about like stuff like Firefly or, even The Expanse. We kind of take our human troubles with us to the stars, but they evolve into different things, and I think that's always been, fascinating to explore in the genre. And I'm kind of wondering where we're going to go with For All Mankind, of course, but yeah.
Yes, and Tristan Mendoza says, mentions the Expanse. I like. He says I like the Expanse since it's around Star Trek time, but humans are still putzing around the solar system with tribal nation state squabbles. Yes, and
But
it's,
that's kind of what would
his
happen, though.
his prediction is that we're going to get into artificial intelligence. That's a good idea because we haven't touched on that much on the
Well,
show.
Tristan is giving us a lot of ideas to talk about. So,
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And D. Odyssey says, "Send me to Mars. I'll go." That's
yep,
for the
get your ass
quiet
to Mars.
time.
I'd go one way at this point. Somebody said go to Mars. I would totally, as long as I could take a hard drive full of my media to watch and
Oh,
listen to.
right. Well, and a backup.
Yeah,
Well,
I
at
mean,
least until they have some entertainment there.
yeah, just to have to watch. As long as I had a laptop and I could get parts for it on the black market.
And I'm glad you already mentioned Star Trek because as for there being more women in space in this alternate reality, I just take that as a matter of course because that's the Star Trek ethos. This isn't show isn't exactly Star Trek, but just like in Starfleet, if you're good enough, you pass the test. That's what matters most. And Ronald D. Moore knows how to present that really well without making it seem more like the other weird stuff going on today. He does it right.
Well, first season, having the female astronaut program continue was a really great, absolutely believable conceit of the show that
Mhm.
they've carried forward. I mean, the back and forth between, Ed and our favorite actress. I mean, I love her so much, Chris,
It's
and
Marshall.
she's the best, and Chris is the
Mhm.
best, but their rivalry. I mean, not only they've touched on almost every different kind of a rivalry people could have within the context of just their relationship between the two of them. I mean, it even got really ugly when Ed brought race into it for a little short period of time,
Ooh,
and you got
he was really very drunk when he did that, and I
yeah,
like to
but that
pretend
was still
that
bad.
wasn't
I
really
mean,
him.
no, it
Yeah.
wasn't him, but
Yeah,
I
there's no
still
excuse,
I still
but
like that they touched on it and how ugly it was.
Mhm.
I like the fact that the show wasn't afraid to go there, and
Yep.
that
especially
that scene made
between
me really angry.
because it made me angry too, but it was supposed to. But the
Mhm.
fact that that core relationship between the two of them is one of the hallmarks, I think, of the show, and the way we've seen it develop over these 4 seasons is really, I mean, it shows that people can still love each other and be on opposite sides, and then they find their way back to one another.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah,
that showing the complexity of adult relationships and adult friendships is one of the hallmarks of the show.
Yep.
At least
absolutely.
so
And
I
and
love
so
that.
I love them too. And well,
Free
and
Margot though.
I hope we haven't seen the last Hi Bob, but for 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 Margot, we're gonna get into that once we get to the predictions for sure.
Mhm.
For season one, that one was, of course, the whole premise of the show. What would happen if we lost a space race and decided, okay, then we'll just keep making the space race go and have the first base on the moon. That's the lead up of all of this, getting more people, more of our population together, and instead of excluding people, and that's where we get the trainees to continue the getting more women into space, and um, oh, it introduces Ed Baldwin as the hero and everything, and but also Molly Cobb, who is my favorite character,
Mhm.
and I just so Apple has a little bit of a few little videos about production for the show. So I avoided it all at the beginning because of I was afraid of spoilers, but now I don't have to worry about that. And in season 1, there's a short video called Building the World where you're introduced to Moore's concept of building off from our space race into his alternate universe that keeps it going over the course of a decade. And of course, each season goes from one decade to the next. And since it's such a beautiful recreation of our reality, but just slightly bended, season 1 is still my favorite because I enjoy seeing all of the performances of the real life players in NASA and everything. And Ben Nadivi had something to say about it as well, calling the experience of working on the show surreal to be working in 3 different worlds, being on Earth and space and on the moon, and of course, later we add Mars. And I experienced the wildness of that in reviewing this show, where I have to explain to the chat, now we're in Russia, now we're in Mars, now we're in space, because if you forget to say that, then the story gets a little bit confusing because you're not actually watching the show when we're doing our reviews. And co-executive producer Steve Oyster, his name,
Hmm.
shows the mission control set, which is a recreation of the real one from NASA. And I love the recreations of all the real stuff, the real flight plans, all of the attention to details, just really lovely. And that is what season 1 was, where all the props mirrored our universe until we get to the later seasons where they get to be more creative. And then I didn't realize that Sonia Walger was British because her American is absolutely perfect.
She's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. She goes
Yeah.
back to, I was watching her in the show Flash Forward like 15 years ago.
hmm And one of the things that shows you just how great Ron Moore is that he considers the costume designer to be as much a part of the storytelling as the sets and the actors. And he said, "Jill, our costume designer, is what what's her last name? I didn't get it. Uh, but costumes really do tell a story and all of that, and I appreciated that. Then there's a really cool tour. I think if you do have Apple Plus, the best behind the scenes stuff they have are when they do the tour of Jamestown and later on also of Mars.
Yeah,
Those
it's
tours
really
are really
cool.
fun. And I mean, I don't even remember if they showed the toilet on the show, but they sure built it. And then in season 2, of course, we jump to the 80s, and then of course we get Ellen Wilson, we get all of the drama, more drama between the Americans and Russians and stuff happening on the moon, the Marines and space Marines. I forget, we had a name for them, but I forget what we named them.
This is, I think it's just Moon Marines.
Moon, well, that's it. Okay, I thought we had a better name.
No.
And more interpersonal drama. Like there was some cases where I'm like, oh, more drama. And sometimes it only gets frustrated when it's episode to episode drama, and then when you introduce the science fiction into it, the pacing of it makes a difference.
Although I have to say, the season 2, the way they built up to everything, the last episode I think it was season 2, was one of the greatest hours of TV I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, and
Yep.
that's and Ed gets to stop a war. So
I mean, the
that's
culmination
amazing.
of all that was so good.
Yes,
Mhm.
the Pathfinder mission was awesome, and being just the scariness of just being disconnected from everyone, and what if you could communicate and get to know what's actually going on and how that would change how they would interact with each other.
And Chris Marshall was so great too when she went off the reservation, deciding, nope, I'm not going to follow orders.
Oh yes,
You
and
know,
she basically, she
And
made
she,
peace.
no,
What-
she quotes an episode of Star Trek, A Taste of Armageddon. That's
yeah.
great.
And when I was a kid, in real life, the Apollo Soyuz mission linked up in orbit in 1975. And I built my grandfather. You could get a plastic model kit of that link up. And I built my
Mhm.
grandfather, I was 8 years old. I built my grandfather a model of that link up, and he had it in his TV room from the time I gave it to him in 1970, probably 76, to the time he passed away in 2008.
Mm.
And
Yeah, I think my dad has the same model too.
yeah, I mean, it was the coolest thing ever. And the fact that, they pushed, what was interesting, sometimes the show is ahead of us, but sometimes it's behind us too. Like that link up was pushed into the 80s because they have to, they take into consideration the tensions existed in the 70s. There was a period of détente between the Soviet Union and the United States and the Western world. And that period of détente led to a lot of people were able to immigrate to America during that time. One of my first girlfriends in high school was a Russian immigrant. She came over when she was 5 with her folks during that period of time. So how they play with history is really interesting in the show. It's really well thought out.
Yeah.
They really know what they're doing.
Gavin Blackburn is here. He said 196 Apollo Soyuz link-up kit.
Yeah, it wasn't a big kit. I wish it was 48 scale. As a matter of fact, I
Yeah,
wish somebody would make one now that was 1/48 scale. But
yeah, I think the one I have that my dad still has is like about it's the same one you're talking about, but it's like it's not as big as I would like it either.
No, but I'll tell you, I was in my rocketry club in elementary school, and I made a whole series of rockets called Soybean, and I used that the Soyuz capsule with the solar panels taken off, and I tried to make a series of rockets to fly with that, but they didn't really succeed very well. So I think I did like 8 versions of the Soybean rockets when I was in the 5th and 6th grade. I wish I wish we had phones back then, because the video is hilarious of the spinning off the launch pads. They never.
Yeah, we used to make model rockets, my dad and I, and we use little like C rockets to do it. So it wasn't really humongous or anything, but it's still fun.
Yeah, nowadays rocketry's. I mean, if you get into rocketry, they have a launch thing where they have to get an FAA waiver because they're making rockets that go 50,000 feet in the air, and some of them even get suborbital. Wild,
I've seen some of them they've made entire mock-ups of like the Colonial Viper from Battlestar Galactica, and they've launched those, and it's like
the X-wing. There's a great video of an almost like a life-size X-wing fighter that they launch, and it completely disintegrates like when it gets into the air, and somebody comped in a TIE fighter blowing it up. I used to watch all those rocketry videos on YouTube. You can find them still. They're great.
Yeah, I've been trying to get my son into that, but yeah, I think he would like it, but I've got to learn it myself first to be safe.
It's pretty fun. I mean, now it's all mid-powered and high-powered rocketry, but you can still buy, the Estes kits at like Hobby Lobbies and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, and Trishan Mendoza is about to leave, but before he leaves, he wanted to explain his season 6 and 7 options, including Alcubierre drive.
Yeah,
that drive is still
Alcubierre
problematic. Yes, powering it, and the writers might write themselves into a corner. What do you think about that, Philip?
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Alcubierre drive, but the physics of it kind of like, I would hate for them to do a thing where, we discovered some alien technology and that's going to allow us to figure out, faster than light travel. I would rather do like Star Trek and just have a guy who just was smart enough to figure it out, even though it may not be as like quote unquote unrealistic or realistic. I still think having that thematic element of, humanity was able to still come up with it is a strong theme.
Do you think that they should, though, this early?
I honestly would love the show if they just don't do it. Keep it.
I think they won't. I just don't think that we're anywhere near that kind of technology.
Yeah, I mean, I would avoid it altogether if I was them.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I see this.
It is a bit soon. It is a bit soon, even in this century, even by Zefram Cochrane's time. That is still too early.
I mean, because I've always seen For All Mankind as sort of like our current modern rendition of like a Heinlein story or a Ben Bova novel.
Yeah,
like I don't want to get too fantastical, but I want to keep it somewhat grounded.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to go full on, because then it wouldn't be the show anymore.
Yeah.
And this is the fun thing about live streams, is that it inspires people to go shopping. D. Jodeci says, I see a one half Soyuz Apollo model kit, but that's the biggest one I can find.
That would be huge.
Yeah.
I
That would
don't even
be
know what you would do with something like that. Oh, it's
half.
it's 176. Okay,
176.
that makes one
Yeah.
half.
no, the-
I was
yeah. I
going quite
mean,
wild.
You need a
when
trailer to
I
bring
was-
it to your house.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I've been
That's
to
like
the
museum size.
like the California Science Center here has like a mock-up of one of the Apollo modules, and it's like half of that is humongous, and so
Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
my latest acquisition is the natural selection from Three Body Problem, but
Oh,
this
wow.
is from the novel. It's not. Although I mean, I think it's from the novel. I don't think it's from the second season of the Chinese version of the series. But this is kind of expensive, and it's got a lot of parts. But I'm happy to have it. It has
Yeah.
lights in it. So
No, I love spaceship models. My dad, he bought all, we have like an entire, like, I swear, like collection that would, if anything happens to me or him, it'd probably be donated to some kind of museum of science fiction.
oh,
But
nice.
because I mean we have like too many battle stars, too many Vipers, too many what have you, but
Could never
too
have
many
too many.
Enterprises.
Could
Too many
never have too
Enterprises.
many. There's
Well,
always
I guess
more.
so.
Too many.
My mom doesn't like it, but
Well, on top of that recap for season 2, I like that you mentioned the last episode, because my favorite episode of For All Mankind is Every Little Thing, which is the first episode of season 2, because that's where my love for Molly Cobb goes from 9 to 1,000. And so she says she's a selfish prick, but in reality, in practice, she has a remarkable capacity to care for others when it really matters most. When she saved Webbo, and
Mhm.
and that was actually another moment of defiance in the name of in the Call of Duty, but also it showcases something I admire in this series. Like most TV shows today, it's serialized, but Ron Moore, being from 90s Star Trek, knows how to make things episodic at the same time. In this
Yeah.
episode, it's perfectly episodic as well as moving the story forward.
Mhm.
And it starts it starts with the joys, marvels of seeing the sunrise on the moon, and then jolts us into reality that you're not so well protected from that intense radiation in certain in certain events.
Man, that was brutal.
It was.
Mhm.
And then season 2 actually had the unique distinction of being produced during the very difficult time of the lockdowns during the pandemic, which had affected so many TV shows and movies. And it affected the Comic-Con as well, which was also all online. So I haven't even finished watching that. There was a panel that was posted on the wiki for All Mankind, but seems
Yeah.
like it's really good. I love listening to the actors talk. Now I can listen to all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And season 3, of course, brings us into the 90s with Ellen just digging deep into being a politician and becoming president and all of that, and meeting Dev and Helios and all of the inspiring nature of seeing commercial enterprises get into space too, which is really fun and mirrors our own reality, which we're starting with that, and that's actually how we're going to move forward.
I also
And
think that Ellen's storyline, when she had to conceal the fact that she was gay, was one of the way it was handled was really terrific. And it was handled with sensitivity and grace, and also the reality, and what was interesting was to see because like in the 90s, in the 80s, I had a lot of gay friends, LGBT friends growing up. And in the 90s, it was, especially in the 80s to the 90s, it was rough because of AIDS, the AIDS epidemic. And especially for gay men, it was a rough time. And I thought that the way that they handled that storyline was great. I mean, it was really, and no one ever screams about how woke For All Mankind is, because all the storylines are true. They feel like they're earned, no matter what subject they're delving into. If it's racism, if it's sexism, if it's LGBTQ issues, they always deal with it in a very realistic manner. So you never feel like it feels earned. And that's another thing I've always loved about the show, is that a lot of people watch it who don't know it. They just, because I've proselytized for this show from the beginning almost and talked about how great it is. And there are some people that push back at me and they're like, well, it's but it deals with the thing about For All Mankind is it deals with our social issues at the same time. It is an alternative history science fiction aspirational show. And I think that's part of its appeal is that it's delving into social issues in a way that feels earned and thoughtful, as opposed to being somebody going, I want to prove. It doesn't virtue signal. And
Right,
to
and
me,
it doesn't paint anybody as a black devil villain or whatever. Everybody is
no.
human, and everybody has the
Well, I
capacity
think the
to
thing that,
learn and grow. There's
yeah,
Go ahead.
I mean, no, I mean, I'm sorry about that, but generally speaking, I think the show is really good at approaching these progressive issues sort of incidentally, where like these things have to happen because like with going back to the very very first season, where it's like Nixon decides to put women in space strictly because he wants to one up the Russians, not because it's a good thing for American politics or whatever. It's just like this is going to be a thing we want to one up the Russians on, and going back to Ellen's reveal that she's a lesbian woman. Now that kind of happens because it needed to happen because it was like built up, and I agree with Robert. It happens incidentally. Like she has to make this bold decision, and it's not something that's like done like with like some kind of Sorkin-esque like applause or anything. It's just like this had to be the ultimate price she had to pay, but she ultimately once it happens, she's able to come away from it because she does get reelected. Because I remember you were saying, Jill, that you thought that she was gonna this was gonna be it for her.
No.
I didn't have the faith in humanity that I thought that well, I was happy to see that she did make it, and that was good. But
What? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it deals with the fact that we in our real lives, I think the biggest frustration for me in my own life is to see the reality of people's existence being denied. Like we're always trying to say like, oh, you can't have this, you can't be this way. Well, these people exist. People of all shapes, size, colors, creeds, sexualities, religions, whatever. They're all here. So are you going to decide that a certain group of people, humanity is always trying to say that, well, these people don't belong. And my question is, well, where do you expect them to go? Where are you going to put them? On some orbital raft and get them off planet? And we've never been very good at incorporating the reality of human existence, which is so diverse and so wacky, and I'm not saying that every single idea, there are certain ideas in the world, like I'm not a big fan of communism. Hasn't worked.
Yep.
20th century showed us why it doesn't work, because human nature is such that people want to excel. People want to do things and be rewarded for their accomplishments.
And this show plays with that too.
Absolutely. And you want human beings. I watched a really interesting Oxford lecture by this woman who's at Oxford. It was amazing. They hated her. You could see, but she was saying, she's like, look, all of you here at Oxford with your liberal values, you're the elite. You're like the best of the best, which is why you're at Oxford. And all you're doing is preaching, you're preaching these liberal values, which is fine. Liberalism is just an openness to new ideas. But we need the elite. We need the people that are smart, that are going to take chances. We need the entrepreneurial spirit. That's what drives innovation and human progress. And one of the things I love about For All Mankind is people like Dev. Dev is a great character because sometimes he's good, sometimes he's bad. He lost everything, then he comes back.
Yeah.
I
didn't like when he didn't save the Russians, but yeah, that was one of his low points. But you're right.
What's funny is I never thought that I would be seeing, on one hand, if you look at our world with SpaceX, you have two booster rockets coming down from orbit that land at sea on barges. I mean, that's where we are with our own space technology, which is astonishing.
Yeah,
and now at the same time,
old 50s style stuff.
Unbelievable. It's and Starship, I don't think most people understand how big Starship actually is. And to watch that booster, the Starship's booster, being caught by a gantry, I mean, I was like weeping.
Yeah,
I thought that was not going to work.
And
No,
like,
I was shocked.
and now
I hoped it would.
Elon Musk has been ostracized. I mean, has he gone off the deep end? You know, there's a lot of people that can't stand him now, and I'm like, it's like it's playing out in real time. And all of
But
these technological advances, it's like, yeah, he doesn't deserve his $50 billion from Tesla or whatever. It's wild to watch how people come into favor, do these amazing things, fall out of favor, come back. I mean, that's human nature. And I love how the show deals with all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what's great about
I
Elon?
agree.
Well, he's willing to experiment with so many different things, and not everything works. Some of it does work, some of it doesn't, and
Well, they've
he's just not
revolutionized the
afraid.
space. They've pushed our space program forward by 30 or 40 years based on what, I mean, NASA can't even, and Boeing can't even get Starliner to work.
No,
Yeah,
we
that was
had a
so
whole
sad.
we had a little thing on our show where we were just kind of like constantly like updating the audience about, okay, the Starliner astronauts, they're they're stuck
Because
up
there
there
was
still.
a for all mankind drama happening in real life,
Yeah,
and those poor astronauts are still stuck up there, and they're going to be stuck up
yeah,
there until next year when
hmm
SpaceX is going to be able to bring them down. And it's been kind of a harrowing thing when they said, "Oh no, the Starliner is starting to make these weird noises," and they decided to send it back to Earth because they decided it was not fit for human habitation. And so
yeah.
they left for the ISS, and yes, we have been keeping people up to date on that. I forgot to get an update on
And
that,
how about
but
the Russian capsule where strange smells are coming out of it? Have you been
oh,
following that story that was recent, like in
I
the last
haven't
couple
seen I
weeks?
haven't oh, no, I
I
didn't
heard
know
What
about
is
something
that
about
one.
that, but
Ew,
Yeah, and
no,
like,
that's
what does
not good.
that mean? What did a rat die in it? I mean,
It's
how do
you better
strange
figure that
smells?
out. There are
are they
people
are
up
they
there.
are they
Yeah,
not like disposing that stuff in space? Do they have do the Russians have this new policy to not
they
dirty
don't
up
know what
space?
it
What's going
is.
on?
They don't know what
Yeah.
it is, and it's and also the space station itself is rickety and old. And why aren't we
Yeah.
replacing it?
Oh,
Where's
I
our
yeah.
inflatable space hotel?
They're not replacing it, but where it is that they're going to retire it, but without a
hmm
replacement. And I hate when that
Yeah.
happens, like with the shuttle
Yeah.
program where we've been dependent
Well, now there's
on
so many people, though, someone
toys.
else, the Chinese will build one.
Well, I mean, I was at the National Space Society conference over by LAX. They had like this guy come in from this new company called Vast Aerospace, and what they want to do is basically make like a giant tube that they would spin for centrifugal gravity. And the idea is that this would be the space hotel, just a giant like tube. And I was
Like
thinking
Babylon
about like,
5 or
The
Gundam
Phoenix
or
yeah, I
or
mean,
2001.
it's not even like that big either. It's like just a regular like habitat module, but it's like maybe stuck 3 or 4 on end. And it's like, okay, but that's like, I mean, you're only going to get so much out of it. I mean, like the inflatable, habitats that people talked about in the past. I mean, those would have more room than this thing would. So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
they're gonna do it, and with the privatization, whether it's Blue Origin or SpaceX or other companies that are coming into it's gonna, it's gonna be like Gattaca. There's just gonna be launches every day.
That would be lovely.
I know, that's where
I
we're gonna
love
be.
Gattaca. Yeah,
Gattaca's the best, although we're getting
yes,
to
it
that
is.
world, and I don't wanna live in it. Thank God I'll be
Well, I mean, I want the space stuff from Gattaca. I don't want the eugenic stuff.
it's gonna happen, though. It's
Yeah,
inevitable, especially with generative AI.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, and we'll see if anything of that is explored soon enough. Yeah, we're going to explore it in our reality, so it makes sense for science fiction to explore it a little more.
hmm
And also season 3, of course, ends with the terrible devastation of one of the Stevens kids acting like an idiot, and NASA and the Johnson Space Center is destroyed.
Our Oklahoma, the show's Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Yes, and also another moment for Molly. Of course, unfortunately, she doesn't survive heroism this time. I think I don't actually make a whole lot of oh no, maybe I got it. Um, I okay, no, I don't have the clip anymore of her saving everybody, but out of the building. But that was how she left, was
It was
going to
great,
get
though.
going to get more people. 'Cause
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
she
great
saved
that
some people. She wasn't finished.
And she goes out of here, a true hero.
yeah. Molly Cobb's the best.
Mhm.
And then they renamed the Space Center for her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that
Yeah,
was my consolation prize for not getting to see my favorite character anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they've done a
Yeah,
good
that
job. I
was
mean,
great.
you know, season 4, I really enjoyed season 4. A lot of people said they didn't like it as much, but I really liked it. I liked because we started to see how society, and I think they're going to carry this through, you know, it mirrors what happens when mankind traveled across the oceans and established uh without the horrible genocide and slavery, but what happens when we establish a colony somewhere and how our own civilization follows. And I thought,
It's not full slavery or anything, but some of the workers are kind of indentured servants for a
indentured,
little while.
100%. And I think they're going to do, you know, in season 5, that what happens when, okay, we've established a colony, and what happens when politics, religion, all of that arrives, and how do you navigate uh all of these human, I don't know, call them, you know, what we do, our human systems that we bring with us wherever we go. So we've established the colony. You have to have the military, you have to have the politicians, you have to have the clergy, you know, and I'm always fascinated, you know, give me Shogun. I've always told people that, like, the original Shogun from 1980, I'm like, that's one of my favorite Star Trek shows, because I've always wanted to see what is it like if someone from the Federation washes up on a truly alien beach, and they're the only humans, or they're the only people from Earth around, and they're dealing with an entirely different alien civilization that has entirely different values, and what do you do? How do you navigate those waters? And
Mhm.
Blackthorn and Shogun, especially in the first Shogun, which was mostly from his point of view, did a really good job of delving into that. And I think season 5, now that we were left with, you know, a vision of giant orbital factories and all that. I mean, and with the For All Mankind twist, because we see the dystopian vision of it in, like, movies like Outland. You know, Sean
Mhm.
Connery has to be the sheriff on Con-Am 27, the mining on
Yeah.
Io, their mining operation, and it's not good. You know,
Yeah.
it's corporate
That's
stuff,
Right.
and
We
the employees are full of you know, taking
yeah,
drugs.
we see the dystopias enough, and that's why I appreciate For All Mankind for daring to have some optimism in there, which is way more difficult to write.
I mean,
Eh,
I would be completely down for like a Western next season. You know, like just some kind of guy like on a peacekeeping force, you know, on Mars, just kind of keep the peace. Because
We're
I mean, I don't know
getting a
if you
new
guys,
character like that.
yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that's what I was hearing.
there's specifically a new actress. Yeah, that's I was
Yeah,
thinking
that's
that
what I'm
is
thinking. Like,
called a
because they
peacekeeper.
yeah, they mentioned that, so
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to see where they go with that. But
Well,
I
you
mean, I'm
really
down for
have been
whatever.
paying attention to the time between seasons, and well, season 5 should be, you estimate summer 2025, and I checked around, and that seems to be generally what people think too.
Yeah, I
Is
think that's it's usually like
because
16 months between seasons.
it was
If not
renewed.
summer, we'll get it in October.
It
Yeah, at
was
the latest.
renewed in April, and production began in summer. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm okay with the fall also. And like always, we move into the next decade. Season 4 was in the 2000s, and so then season 5 is going to be in the 2010s, 2012.
Yeah, in and around 2012. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean,
um,
and I think that you've got, again, you're going to have all these different, like, we in real life, we've launched our Europa mission,
Mhm.
which is now en route to Europa, and who knows what it's going to find. Will it find evidence of life in those oceans?
oh, wait a second. Wait a second. I didn't realize we were doing a Europa mission. Are
Yeah,
they
it's
drilling?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
already, we
No.
launched it. They
Yeah.
SpaceX launched the Europa
It was
mission.
like maybe in like the last couple months. I think we launched it.
Yeah.
But
Europa
NASA's
Clipper.
been saying that they were afraid to do it because they don't want to disturb the life if there is life. How is this
No,
mission going to
I don't know if
avoid
I
that?
ever
That's what
heard
the
that.
monolith aliens are for. You know, we get to
Well,
Europa, they'll say attempt no landings there.
yeah, that's it'll be like from 2010. You know, the year we made contact. They're going to say don't attempt contact there.
Yeah,
Europa. All
don't
these
do it.
worlds are yours except Europa.
Yeah, use them together and use them in peace, although that wasn't in the book.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's already happened, and I do think you're going to have parallel storylines, because you're going to focus on where we're at politically and morally and ethically and socially on Mars. You're going to have that, but at the same time, I'll bet you that one of the things that's going to happen in season 5 is they're going to discover microbial life somewhere, whether it's on Mars, where they've already basically said it is, and then if we find it in 2 different places, then you bring religion into it. Because
Well, that's what I was waiting for Kelly to find some life in
yeah,
that
and
crater, but
I
they
think
they
she will. I think she
they
will,
drug us along.
but the ramifications for human life are so profound because our belief systems, our religious belief systems, how do we then reconcile life on other planets? And a lot of people will
To
just
say that they're not mutually exclusive, because even the Pope has said, yeah, there could be aliens.
right, exactly. But how many people on Earth will say that? You know, how many? We're still half the planets right now. Is we have wars, conflagrations that have their roots in religion. And what happens when suddenly evidence extraterrestrial life exists? How do people that have believed a certain thing their whole lives reconcile that? You know, it's interesting with science fiction fans, we just assume. You know, if you've grown up as a sci-fi fan, we're just waiting for the day when UAPs are revealed to be aliens or ancient astronauts, or they just show up one day. And maybe they'll be like ET or the Vulcans, or maybe it'll be an Independence Day city destroyer. Either
Or something
way,
in the middle.
or something in the middle. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
the 3-body problem. Like, we don't like you, and humanity goes through hell, but eventually prevails. In very different ways. I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting. And I think the show, we're not going to have warp drive, or we're not going to meet aliens, because that would sort of defeat the purpose, because then it becomes just an ordinary show. The point of For All Mankind is to show where we now could find ourselves. Where might we be? And what I love about it is it always is relevant to us. It never spins too far off into the sci-fi realm. So it doesn't have to be speculative. And that's what I think great science fiction does. It puts a mirror back on us at the same time it gives us that crunchy, chewy sci-fi goodness with peanuts and caramel and nougat and chocolate that we love.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, even if we did meet an alien, it wouldn't look nothing like us. It wouldn't be like humanoids like in Star Trek. It would be
I think we're probably,
more like the Horta than
maybe,
anything else.
probably. No, it'd be like Battlestar Galactica, the new series. Like their approach to it was basically no aliens at all, maybe some microbial, like simple life, and that's about it. And I think that's kind of, I mean, it's what they did. I mean, it's Ronald D. Moore again, but we're going to see kind of that element carried on in this show, where you might get a little bit of an idea of like smaller, simpler life, but you won't get like full blown, aliens landing on the White House lawn, or they're landing in Bozeman, Montana. We're going to get something, a lot more simpler than that.
DJ Odyssey says there will be Mars Attacks aliens that we can defeat with Slim Whitman music, and I love that.
For the Beastie Boys.
It's just funny.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But I mean, the thing about that too is that I think one of the we're not able to show alien life because all alien life that we've ever seen in science fiction, fantasy, and horror has been a reflection of us. We don't have, I mean, the 3-body problem does a good job of kind of, I mean, they anthropomorphize those the Trisolarans through the game systems, but they don't look anything like us. And if we saw some kind of life form, it would not be like us at all, probably. So
I mean, yeah,
there's a movie coming out. I don't know if you guys have read Project Hail Mary, the Andy Weir book. Andy Weir, that movie.
I love Andy Weir.
Yeah, that movie's wrapped. I can't wait to see. I love that book. I read that book in one sitting. I mean, it's totally an entertaining sci-fi romp. First Contact, Hell in the Pacific. Two very different people have to figure out. Well, not people, but 2 very different entities have to figure out how to overcome a problem and survive. And I can't wait for the movie. And I think it's going to be, if they pull it off, the depiction of an alien that's very, very different from us could be very, very effective.
Yes, well, and also, Carl Sagan did it in his Cosmos series when he imagined what life could be like if there was life on Jupiter, and he had these floaters and sinkers just living in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Those were insanely different from us. But before we talk about more stuff, I wanted to make sure to say hello to Raj Star in the chat, Gavin Blackburn, if I haven't said hello to you yet, Brogu Gorillas, Censored Thoughts, Lemon Pie, Low Specs, Linux Gaming, DJ Night, and who just showed up, Canadian Spider-Man. Hello.
Hmm.
Good to see you again, Robert. He says.
Well, hello
I
there.
always thought
Hello there.
we could find something that is their kryptonite that is harmless to us, DJ, like butter or shaving cream. Wait, what? What are you talking? What are you talking? Okay, I missed the
I don't know.
conversation.
I mean, it
totally
couldn't.
missed
I
that
mean,
conversation.
Like
I
the
don't know, I think
comic
they're
What is
trying
he
books,
to.
the
talking
War of the
about?
Worlds aliens.
Yeah, or even like that
Oh,
movie
yes.
Evolution, where it's like Head and Shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. In War of the Worlds, they're defeated by our bacteria.
Evolution. I haven't thought about that movie in a long time.
It's one of my
With-
dad's favorites. So that's why I
with-
think about it.
The smiley face with the 3
Mhm.
eyes.
Yeah, it's great.
And
It's underrated.
David Duchovny.
Yeah,
Yeah, good.
I want to go
Mhm.
watch
pretty
that. I
funny.
don't own that movie. I gotta watch that again. I missed
that's
out
pretty
once.
funny.
And so anyway, I still managed to. Okay, so we're gonna have some new actors for season 5, and I just wanted to mention their names. And Enos Asserson is going to be playing AJ Jarrett. It's going to be her character name. She was in Royal Teen, but I have no idea what that is. All I know is going to play a Marine sent to space, and so I like the vagary of that. We'll see what comes from that. Then
We're
we're going to
getting Mars
have
Marines.
yeah, more Mars Marines. That'll be great because the people that became security detail for season 4 were just basically anybody with previous military experience. They're just like, you were in the military, you're security now. Forget what you're doing before.
One of the
And
great things
Roop-
about the show
yeah.
too is when they jump ahead, they just expect you to catch up. We get to extrapolate the past 10 years. We don't need to know where they got to. They just assume the audience will understand. And I think that's
There's
a
a lot
really
of
great
filling in the
conceit of the
break
show.
links, yeah. And well, that's my favorite part is that every new season has that montage of, oh, here's what happened
It's the
while
best.
you're
I
gone.
love that so much.
Mhm.
So good.
And so then we are also going to have Ruby Cruz as Lily Dale. She was in Willow, so now she'll actually be able to be in something good. And as Lily Dale, she's playing Miles and Amanda's daughter, which should
Yeah.
be good. I love seeing the new generations of the kids growing up.
I mean, I like Miles.
Midi-
So
I like Miles too. He
I did
goes from
too.
just an everyday man into a mafia boss. How does that
yeah, just
happen?
like a regular guy, and then it's thrust into that position.
It was good.
Media Ennis is gonna be Celia Boyd, a member of that's the Peacekeeper Security Force on
There you
Mars.
go.
So another Marine. That's gonna be good. Sean Kaufman is gonna play Alex Palatov Baldwin, and of course Kelly's son. And this is gonna be good. It'll be good to see him a bit more grown up and see how he goes. You know, the whole Baldwin family will still be on Mars.
The
So
Baldwin
first
family is going to be the
Martian kid.
family, the space family, the first family of
Mhm.
space.
Yeah.
Yes, and then Costa Ronin is going to be Lenya, a Soviet politician and former cosmonaut. Then Tyler Labine is going to also be a peacekeeper named Fred. Michael Klesick is also going to join the cast, but he doesn't have a name yet. He's just some Helios worker. And Phil, you told me that the creators want 7 seasons for the show, which definitely makes me happy, and not just because that's the length of a long-running Berman era Star Trek show, but also because it means they have a plan. They know where they're going, and that means more to me than anything that he actually. There are too many shows that have a serialized nature, and they're just like, "We'll figure it out as we go along." But that's not this show.
Yeah, I mean, Ronald D. Moore is a little bit guilty of being that, at least in the new Battlestar, because they said, "Oh, the Cylons are here, and they have a plan," and they didn't have the creators didn't have a plan at that point. They were writing by the seat of their pants. But in this one, they actually do have an extended plan about what they want to do.
Well, I'm glad he's grown from that. But that didn't end too badly, though. Even though he did that, he still figured it out.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I don't mind how it ended on Battlestar, but I mean, I love Battlestar in general. But yeah, a lot of people didn't like the ending, but
I love Daybreak.
My only problem with the production of this show is that they won't just say For All Mankind, you have 7 seasons. You don't have to worry about being canceled. I wish that they would just give them that freedom to know
Yeah,
that they
it's
can
just
lay out the story they want.
these days it's really hard because that's an investment of tens of millions of dollars. And
Yeah.
nobody, I mean, they've talked about how like Apple's Tim Pool loves this. Is not Tim, is it Tim Pool? Tim Pool, not the broadcast, not the YouTuber with the beanie.
Tim Apple.
Tim
Apple.
Tim at Apple. Yeah, Tim Apple's
Tim Cook.
Tim Cook.
That's
Yeah, Tim Cook. That's what I mean. That he loves the show. And so it's great that I mean, when I worked on an anime at Netflix, and they greenlit the show for the 3 seasons we were going to get from the very beginning because it was animated and you needed that lead time. I would suspect that For All Mankind has that as well. They just can't say it.
Yeah.
What, you mean the CEO? Oh man, is actually a sci-fi fan? That hardly ever happens. That must be why all the best sci-fi stuff is happening with Apple.
I mean, it would be nice if like Bezos had more of a say with The Expanse, but you know.
I mean, they did bring it back. They did bring it to Amazon.
Yeah, that's the one consolation I can give.
I mean, I wish they'd do the last 3 books. You know?
Me too.
I mean, they still can. It takes place 30 years later.
Yeah, I mean, if they wait for 30 years, it would sync up perfectly. They don't even have to put age makeup on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just happy that I never thought this show would go to 5 seasons. I hope it goes to 7 seasons, but I never thought it would go to 5.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I mean, we're getting a spinoff, Star City. So I know that just speaks to confidence in the show.
And it better start.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to mention next. Is we're going to get to see everything happen from the Russian point of view, which is interesting. So that is something Ron has some ideas about. He actually knows where he's going there too.
Free Margot.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
No, but I think there was some discussion about how they wanted to like portray Russian in the show, because they were like, they don't want to do like a show that's completely subtitled, but I think they're going to go the Hunt for Red October route, where they're kind of going to use like a word and they're going to change it, and then that'll be the thing that
they could use Armageddon again.
I mean, yeah, why not? I mean, they did it already. You know, a taste of Armageddon. Might as well, do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, and that was brilliant, because that's why you could have a Russian Scottish captain of the Red October.
Exactly.
Okay, we have a new guest in the backstage. I need to bring him up. Let's see. I'm going to bring him up right now. We have Lance from the Outcast Creative. Welcome, Lance.
Apologies for my tardiness. My book literally dropped about an hour ago on Amazon.
Just on time.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, that's an accomplishment. That's awesome.
I've been running around doing all the posts and social media and sorting out streams and all of that. So yeah, thank you, Robert, for that. Thank you very much.
Well, what's the name of the book? We all can go to Amazon right now.
Yes, Amazon.com if you're an American audience, because if you order it from Amazon.co.uk, it will take about, if you're in America, it will take about 3 weeks to arrive. So you don't want to do that. I can pull up the page real quick. Jill, thanks for the plug. Sorry, this is a bit off topic.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we are here for All Mankind, but I will let you go on for your book, because it is still. I will let you talk about that, and definitely we can share that link right now. And
yeah, so
it's really good though, because you're talking about you talk about your theater movie experiences and your life and everything.
It's basically it's my life at the movies from 1974 right through till 2024. I don't know if you want to share the screen, but I just put the link in there.
I'd buy that. I'd love to read a book like that.
Yeah, Robert, I think you'll find it very interesting. It's not a movie review book. Just
no, I would hope not. I know exactly. Yes.
I mean, I do talk about the films in it, but it's more about where I saw the film, who I saw the film with, what impact the film had on me at the time, and what the film means to me now. And I talk a lot about films that have stolen a lot of time from my life, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense.
I'm right there with you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean,
Lance,
looking
could you send that link in the private chat for me?
About. Sorry, Jill.
Could you send that link in the private chat for me?
This book sounds right up my alley.
So I can put it in the. I want to put it.
Yeah, I'll sort it out for you right now. So yeah, I think it will be. I mean, full of stories. It tells you why and how I ended up sort of working in the industry as well.
Ooh, and it's in
So
hardcover too. That's
there is
even
a
better.
hardcover. There's a forward from Critical Drinker, which is really kind of him. Will knew I was working on the book from day one, and I said, "Listen, man, I think this might be right up your street." And yeah, he offered to do the forward for me after he read sort of an early version of it. So, and it's got quite a few pictures in it, both kind of personal stuff and connected to some of the movies. And yeah, it's been a pretty epic journey. Writing the last 2 chapters of it was really, really, really hard, I have to say.
Well, I just bought the hardcover.
Oh man, damn, that was quick. You Johnny Fast thing. I didn't even see your fingers move. I don't know how you did that. Psychic powers.
As a matter of fact, it's going to arrive on Saturday, December 7th, which, by the way, is the anniversary of the release of Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
It's also the anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, right?
It is, but we
Yes, it is.
replaced that with the release of Star Trek: The Motion
Yeah, something more optimistic.
Well, Star Trek: The Motion Picture gets mentioned in the book. So does Tora Tora Tora. There's a big section on that.
Oh,
in the
nice.
book.
Yeah, it's what is it? It'd be the 45th anniversary of the release of Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Yeah,
45 years
Yeah,
ago.
I mean, I'm one of those people who loves the motion picture, but some people look at me kind of funny when I say that.
It's my favorite Star Trek movie by a
Oh,
wide
I
I
really
have it
like it,
too.
but I didn't like it when I first saw it, and I talk about
Same.
why. And I was a kid who'd just seen Star Wars with lots of pew pew, and you kind of wanted to see another film with a lot of pew pew, and you're 6 years old or whatever.
I
And
mean,
Understandable.
For the kid me, it was very boring. For adult me, who kind of got those kinds of films and loved them, it was great. And also, I really, really like the updated recent.
Oh,
version.
yeah.
I think that's the piece de resistance of that film.
yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, I know what they were saying when they said that. When they made the motion picture, they were kind of talking about how, they saw Star Wars and they were like, okay, let's make a movie. And then the movie they make is not Star Wars. It's like almost borderline 2001. I don't consider it that much like 2001, but I know they made that comparison.
Plus, they had such a hard time. They were locked into a release date. They had so many problems. One of the great books, if you get it, there's a book on the making of Star Trek: The Motion Picture called Return to Tomorrow.
Right.
And the writer was covering the production of the film for Cinefantastic magazine. So he was kind of embedded in the production. And he interviews everyone, including people like Shatner and all the stars. And it's wild because, especially the actors, are not... At the time, Star Trek was a failed show, and they've been going to conventions, and they had an animated show. But the idea that they're making a movie, they're all walking around set going, "This is amazing," and William Shatner is just beside himself. He can't believe it's happening, and to read the interviews, and then it also does a great job of explaining kind of what went wrong during the production. It's really good. But you know what? Buy that after you buy Silver Screen Journeys, which is available now on Amazon in hardcover for $25.95.
Oh, thanks, man.
One click away.
I've got that. The Making of Wrath and Khan.
That's a great book.
Yeah, I've just stepped out of the shower. Sorry, so my
that came out from Titan Books. That's a British publisher. That
Yes, and for people just listening, I did put the link in the chat and on
There's
screen
the book.
too. If you you definitely need this book. I'm going to get
how
it.
How long did it take you to write it from beginning to end, soup to nuts?
I came up with the concept last year when I did my previous book, 1988, because I was like reviewing all the movies that I saw that year in this. And of course, a lot of those movies had like a personal story attached to. I took 22 people to see the very first screening of Die Hard, hence the cover. And that was at the London Film Festival in 1988. And no one had ever heard of it, but I'd already seen it 7 times in America that year because I'd been to the States for the first time. So
did you see the preview Die Hard? They showed it like a week before it opened. They used to have public previews where they'd show movies like a week in advance to gin up word of mouth.
No, this was different. This was the London Film Festival had it as a special screening among the 40 films they were showing that year in November. It wasn't released in the UK until 1989.
Oh, wow.
So this was but I'd already seen it because we would normally get films about 6 months to a year after you back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't like now where it's either the same day or a week later.
Yep.
So in the 80s and 90s, the distribution lifespan was very different. So no one had heard of it. No one had heard of Die Hard. Even at the London Film Festival, it was empty because no one had heard of it. Bruce Willis film. What's
That's
that?
how I went. I just moved to California. I was 21 years old, and I went with a friend, my friend Taylor White, and we thought it was a joke.
Right.
It was, and we went an early screening. It was a week before it opened, and we had nothing to do, and we went to this theater, and it was one of the great movie going experience. That and like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Seeing those I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, same thing. It was at a public sneak. They were showing it before it opened with Excalibur. And I took my friends to Excalibur again, and we went and saw. We're totally off topic, but seeing that movie in the theater, like you, it literally, the ad campaign they were talking about, it'll blow you through the back of the theater. It was so wild to sit in that theater like you. There was hardly anybody in the theater. And
well, I was saying, there's a story attached to seeing that film, which I wrote in that book, and that's what gave me the idea for this book. And I thought I've got loads of stories like that throughout my life, and then they also segue into my journey into the industry. So that's what gave me the idea, and I started making some notes, and then I didn't dive into it properly until I think it was May. I started writing it, and about 4 months. So, I mean, I was writing it almost every day. So about 4 months.
That's pretty good, though. That's pretty fast.
I'm a pretty fast script writer. I can do 22 pages a day under pressure. So,
wow.
I mean, I wrote 30 screenplays in lockdown and a 500-page novel all in 1 year. So I was writing every day. And we were doing live table reads online I had queues of actors waiting to do them because they didn't have anything to do and they were all really depressed.
Right.
And that was how I just kept churning stuff out because it was so great. It was so great for me because you were writing a script, you were hearing the script, then you were readjusting the script, and then you would do it again and you would hear it again. And you could tell what was working in the scene and what wasn't. I wrote the whole first season of my sci-fi novel series, which was always designed to be a TV show. I wrote all 12 episodes of season 1 in lockdown, and we read the pilot, and everybody was, "Oh my god, this is so good! We're doing episode 2 next week, right, Lance?" And I was like, "Yes." And I hadn't written any of it yet, but in 7 days, I wrote the next one, and by the time we were reading episode 2, I was halfway through episode 4, and boom, 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 boom. It was really, lockdown was great for me, I have to say.
Yeah. It was very productive.
Yeah, for me, it was, I mean, obviously there were things about it that were awful, but it was it was very productive.
I mean, it definitely gave me a lot of time to do some novel writing that I wanted to do. So
yeah.
Definitely agree there.
Anyway, sorry, Jill. So thank you for plugging my book. Very kind.
No, absolutely, absolutely. We definitely, the kinds of things that you do are awesome, and I love to hear about it. But of course, we are talking about For All Mankind.
Well, just make sure that Lance, make sure you clip out what Robert was saying about the book. You can use that as a short.
Oh yeah. I should turn that into an advert, shouldn't I? That's your endorsement is Rob, thanks very much. I mean, you haven't read it yet, you might hate it, so
I don't think so. I mean, because it sort of sounds like it's something I could write the same way, because movies have meant so much to me, and I've often thought about doing the same kind of thing. I love the idea of you're talking about your love of movies and how it led you into the industry.
Because that's the kind of thing that I want to learn, but definitely continue.
Yeah, all my professional work was always inspired. I mean, I first started working at what was considered the second video store in the United States when I was 13, just because I never left. I wouldn't leave. I'd just walk around and look at the movies, and they're like, "Kid, you want a job? You're always in here anyway."
I worked at 2 video stores. That's all in there. I worked at the cinema. That's all in there as well. So, I mean, it's all in the book, really, So, but I think
right up my alley. Catnip for me.
Yeah, and I'm interested in learning this kind of stuff, these kind of things, even though I'm not in the industry or anything. I'm just a fan.
Sure.
I'm just a fan, but
there's quite a few.
I can't wait to read it.
There's quite a few personal bombshells in there which I've never spoken about before. So,
even more tasty
when you read them.
Right, and that's going to be good. But It was actually perfect that you came on exactly when you did, because we finished our first segment of the show, which was a bit of just a review wrap, just talking about the series in general, and now we're moving on to season
Well-
5 predictions. So
Well, one of the,
of course we can go
one
anywhere.
of the things I would say
at this
is,
point.
for me, is that there's that end sequence at the end of the last episode, and you see the colonies have all expanded, and it's like a montage of stuff. Really good visual effects.
That's when Dev is standing there.
That suggests quite a big passage of time from the last scene that we see to, hey, this is where we're going to be in season
like,
5. That's at least 10
9 years,
15,
maybe
20 years or something.
Yeah, they
9
always
years,
jump
'cause
10 years. Yeah, 9, 10, because it's
it's
Yeah,
like
so-
2000. Yeah,
I'm going to guess that the first episode is going to open with the funeral of a main character. And there's going to be some kind of honor guard and talks about how this person influenced the journey to Mars. And that's either going to be Chris Marshall's character, or it's going to be, is it Joel McKinnon, who was
Joel,
RoboCop?
yeah.
Yeah, that-
guy? Yeah. It's
I
going to
don't
be
know.
one
I
of
think-
those two. I
So you
reckon.
think it's going to be Ed or Danielle?
Ed or, yeah, and
Yeah, Margot's
they'll be-
storyline is way too open for that. Oh, I'm not looking forward to that, because we didn't get a death in this season 4 finale.
Yeah, this show's
and-
like the murder capital show of the world.
yeah.
They just set people up to take them out,
Show.
punch them down. I think you might be right about that. Although I do think that Ed will die. I think we're going to see him check out.
Yeah,
But he might be he might be like the first we talked about earlier, the first family in space. I think Ed will be maybe the first person or the second person buried, actually maybe officially buried on Mars.
well, that's what I
Maybe.
was thinking it might open with.
Didn't
Was
have
an
a
actual
funeral for
burial
Danny?
on Mars. That's probably how I would open
Yes,
it.
they
Like,
do.
you know,
I mean,
pull
that is
back.
if
They
we
just left him there, right?
yeah, that is if we do. That is if they actually do the thing I was talking about, where, because Joe was mentioning Danny Stevens and actually having something for him, and I'm thinking, because there was a rumor on Reddit where everybody was like, "Man, it's kind of weird how they were all looking emaciated and all like kind of, like they needed food, and then Danny dies, and then they can use whatever rations he had." But then somebody was saying,
What
"What
I
if
thought.
they Donner partied him?" And it's
But-
like,
But I didn't think that. I didn't go that far.
Yeah,
well, Reddit gets crazy.
It might start with his funeral. You might get like a pull back from the gravestone, and then you realize you're on Mars, and then they might do one of those 10 days earlier things, and suddenly you'll get a bit of that character, and you'll see what happened and why they died. But I
Ed's
think
got to
it's
go
gonna
out
be
like a boss.
something like that. Something like that.
He does. He's got to go out on his own terms, doing something
Yeah.
important, because that's all he wants, is to make a difference.
Or
And
I
if he
think
does-
that he also has to get an opportunity to redeem himself for not landing on Mars first, because he chickened out. I mean,
I
like maybe he's going to be in command of the pilot or something of the Europa mission that ends up discovering microbial life or something like that. If his daughter
Well, I
doesn't do it
mean,
already.
that
don't
would
know if you
have
guys
to
have-
include Kelly, and that would be great, because they need to spend more time together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw any of the like supplemental material people have been looking at, but there's like a still of an actor in a jumpsuit, and it says Sojourner. It's a mission patch that says Sojourner 7 and something about going to Titan. And so some people are saying that that's where we're going next season, or at least going to build up. That's the next frontier, is to head to Saturn. And that would be interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Because I think that's where we're already on our way to the Jovian and the Saturn systems anyway, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that's all going to go.
I mean,
I want to
I'm
say
already
hello
thinking like,
to Greek letters in the chat, and
hey.
you may continue, Philip.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just saying that it's kind of like the way I think about this Saturn mission is kind of, I'm thinking, the Sean, Jeffrey, Christopher thing from the original series.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
that's going to be our sort of exploration of that. And then what I would like to see is Ed kind of on like a gets recruited to be on some kind of like I don't know what you want to call it, like space cruise, like celebrity space cruise, something like what we'd seen in 2061. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how we expand beyond Mars and what what we do for that, because of course Goldilocks isn't the only asteroid we're going to encounter, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's been confirmed, right, that season 5 is going to be the last, from what I
No.
understand.
No.
Yeah,
No.
No.
Ah, that changes things then.
hopefully not. And the plan is 7 seasons.
7. Okay. All right. Okay.
Tristan Mendoza says, "Sorry, I ducked out and spilled all my predictions at once at the start. I didn't think I would be back until you guys finished up. Well, if anything strikes you, please tell us again, and we'll talk about it. Like for one thing, one of the big plot points opened up in season 8 of episode 8 of season 4 is the focus on the Brazil Space Agency. Well, at least just a mention of it. Was it just a nice dream to make us mourn more when due to Sergei's death, or a clue that in season 5 we might see Brazil, maybe some other nations also catching up in the space race and also getting out there and making their own claim to some kind of space adventure. And at this point, if North Korea can do it, anyone can.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I was saying we're going to see politics is now going to follow.
Yeah.
And you're going to see politics, religion, society, all of what happens to, you can look into what's so great is you look into our own past. How does colonization work? When you've traveled a vast gulf and ocean or something and you make a beachhead. We talk about Sean Connery. He tells the story when Cortez made it to the New World, he burned his ships. That's where his men were more motivated. It's the idea is that civilization will follow, and how is humanity going to manage that? And because in space, because it's such an unforgiving environment, environmental protections in terms of how to keep people safe is such a big part of the resources needed to conquer the inner solar system. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play that out, because the expanse. With the expanse and that conflict between the Belters and Mars and Earth was always there, and I hope this show doesn't get bogged down in those political machinations. I mean, it's got to have to do it at some point because it's always been political.
And that's the crux of this show, is that there is going to be some drama, but they're not going to leave you hanging. We will get some kind of advancement. We will push forward eventually. There's always that. There's always that
I think
thread
the
that we
chances
can
of
move forward despite our foibles.
I think the
Go ahead,
chances of
Lance.
there being a storyline where Mars starts to break away from Earth are extremely likely, or that there might even be a push for Martian independence. I mean, if there's 7 seasons, that will probably be the main storyline for season 6.
I think they're already going to be independent. I mean,
by
I
the
think
end of season 5, maybe.
No, I mean they didn't. They declared their independence in 4.
Even at the end of because they show a clip of Kuznetsov Station. There's like a banner.
Oh yeah,
it says "Free Mars" on it.
Yeah.
The flag. I forgot about the flag. You're right.
Yeah,
they
that's
do
true.
kind of say that.
Yeah,
because
So
I mean,
for
I
those
think
of-
that'll become bigger.
because they've already done that in other shows, whether it's Total Recall or whether it's The Expanse. I mean, the idea of Martian independence. I think once they jump past that, they can show once Mars is independent, you're already immersed in those storylines. So it's like, how do you maintain your independence? What are the difficulties about being independent? It immediately jumps you into that drama as opposed to waiting for Mars to become independent.
They're already showing those clues that Mars is not beholden to the laws of Earth in certain ways. And
that's really interesting. Like if you just say Mars is independent, like there's resources from Earth they have to have. And what happens when they don't have those resources?
Or even some countries that they have to bargain with that aren't like the United States that, wants to have like more of a monopoly on it. They have to start reaching out to countries that might want to have burgeoning space programs, and they start, having those people support them. I don't know.
That's really interesting.
I see Space Texas being what we're going to see next season. Like They're
Yep.
going to have
Raisins.
like a tiny little time, and where they're independent, and then that might not be. They'll be a nation state for like a little bit, and then they'll fold into something larger. Is my kind of long-term
That's a
prediction.
great idea with other independent states.
And it sounded like Lance had something to add to that, I think.
I mean, I think I said when I thought it was going to be 5 seasons, this was going to be the last. That was what I heard when it got commissioned. But 7's better. 7 would be good because you can do a lot with that. I was saying before I thought season 5 would end with some sort of alien contact, not spaceships landing and people coming out. It will be some kind of signal, probably, or detection of something, a planet. Now that they're further into space, they can see more things, this kind of thing. But there'll be some definitive proof of intelligent alien life, kind of what's going to happen pretty soon on Earth, in real time. So I think
We're all waiting. Bring on disclosure.
Yeah, man.
Disclosure's coming.
I think it's coming. So I think there'll be some sort of storyline that's going to reflect that. And you might even get an episode where I wouldn't be surprised if something breaks in the news in the interim. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an episode that flashes back to Roswell and we get like a Roswell episode that somehow then links into, hey, we had something all along and now we can get ahead of the game because we've got this thing and we understand how it works and we've had it all this time. But until now, we didn't know how it worked, or there'll be something like that.
I don't know if they'll, because Gene Roddenberry always said things like, "We built the pyramids because human beings are awesome." And I think if they push it too far into, like, I agree with you. I think like the very end of the show will be them getting a wow signal.
Yeah, that's how I would end it.
That's how the whole show's going to end. That we get but there's no way to get there. We don't have the technology, and the idea will be that in the future, one day, we will meet them. Out there. But
yeah, I mean,
if you just turned it into, it wouldn't be what it is anymore if it went too sci-fi.
No, I agree. Don't want to go.
I mean, I like the idea of like a slow boat mission to the stars. Like, they have the technology; they can build like in the Expanse, the Nauvoo, and they want to launch a generation ship someplace. That's the furthest I think they would go.
I think that's what Tristan is saying here. He says yes, Martian independence. Oh, but he also says Martian marijuana anyone, which leaves open an option for Wayne to do something, right? If he's still around.
Might be able to offer a strand of Martian red on the planet.
Yeah.
But politics over belt mining, and 06 begins space race to interstellar, and probably mostly an ion propulsion though, and that speaks to your generation ship idea, I think. And I want to say hello to
fusion drives. So.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to go into that sci-fi realm. I think it's going to be mostly because I
see them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about it.
No, it's too much. It would not be the show anymore.
Yeah.
Because then they're dealing with a future, an alternative future that's very close to ours. And if you jumped into bigger, headier sci-fi concepts, it becomes more mundane in a way because we've seen so much of that before.
But I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen it quite to this scale. I mean, like we've seen, alternate futures, sure, but we've never seen a alternate timeline that stretches, from a point of divergence in the 60s and then seeing the entire thing played out for us.
Yeah, I just don't think if you have aliens, what are you going to do? Unless I mean, that's why I think having microbial life is the way to go, because that brings with it so many other questions that are relevant to us now.
Yeah,
even life that we cannot communicate with would shake the world. And the going back to Free Margot, basically, is that the last time I thought that Margot was going to prison. That's what Rob was saying. And I was wrong when I thought she was going to prison before. So I'm not so quick to jump to that conclusion this time. But if she does, I think that would be really neat. One of her classic wake up routine sequences. We're definitely going to get one of those. And as
Sorry, go ahead.
as Bill said, though, Sergey died. I guess supposedly to narratively motivate Margot, because I was so upset at his pointless kind of death in his room. But it was a really good scene, the dual cheeseburgers and all of that. So fulfilling his dream of doing something with Brazil, that would be wonderful. But also Margot is becoming elderly, so how is that going to factor into it with all of these characters?
Margot can never die. She
Yeah,
will live
I
forever.
hope so.
I
Well,
think there's only going to be like 3 characters by the very end. It's going to be Aleda, Margot, and Ed.
they're all going to be androids. Lance?
Yeah, I was
Lance,
going to
did you have
say, who thinks there might be an episode? Sorry, going back to Aliens again, but who thinks there might be an episode where they find? Because you all know the thing about the alien mask in the Martian landscape, right? Which was used in another movie, Mission to
Mission to
Mars.
Mars.
Face on Mars.
Mission to Mars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mars.
I think
Love
they
that movie.
might do something with that mythology. There might be, we might get an alien artifact, or we might get something that looks like a temple, or I don't know that they'll go to lean into it too far, but we might get something in that direction. Maybe that might be, for example, the ending of season 5. They discover something like that, which leads them to start looking into a certain area of space for intelligence, which will be a subplot of season 6 while other major plot lines are going on. And then season 7 might ultimately finish with some sort of contact with these people. We know they're there. Like you say, we can't get to them yet. I think that might be how that storyline may get introduced. That might be a bit too in the Star Trek direction, but hey, this is baby Star Trek, so why not?
Well, again, we'll see.
No, I mean, I think it's going to end up being.
I'd-
Well, I mean, I'm thinking that if they do that, it's going to end up being similar to this series of novels. I think they're called the Chindi novels by Jack McDivitt, and I don't know if that would be the route that the show would go down, but who knows?
I think this show will go more down. I'm sure, Rob, you've read these books. I mentioned them last time I came on. The Mars trilogy, Green Mars, Blue Mars.
Yeah, the Kim Stanley Robinson trilogy. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love those. It's funny. I just recommended those books to somebody yesterday.
I actually bought those and read them before I wrote my first novel, because everybody said this is like the definitive sci-fi trilogy. You've got to read it, and I found it quite heavy going, but it was good.
It is good.
Yeah, I love. It has one of my favorite. I hope if I was them, I would rip this off. I love the space elevator that they have on Mars, and then it breaks.
Yeah, they did that already.
Yeah, they kind of did. I mean, it falls from space, and the rotation of Mars, it keeps falling and falling and falling all around the planet.
Yeah.
When did they do that?
In Kim Stanley Robinson's book.
Yeah.
No, I mean outside of that. I mean, I would love that to actually happen. I was thinking,
yes, me too. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, they don't have the space elevator yet that way.
But that scene with somebody planting a bomb on a space elevator has been used in another show. I'm trying to remember what.
Oh, you're talking about Foundation.
Yeah. And that's
different.
That's that book.
Yeah, but that's different. I think for me, a Martian space elevator. I mean, even beyond that, I mean, you could do so much with it now. I mean, you could do, because Buzz Aldrin predicted like this thing called an Aldrin cycler, where it's just like a string of ships that just go around in a certain orbit, constantly delivering supplies and personnel. And I think you're kind of seeing that already with the Unity that's going between Earth and Mars every month, essentially. So just expanding on that would be another thing you could do.
Every month?
And then you have every month, because they have because they mentioned that they moved on from just fusion power drives to plasma.
Right. So now
they
they're
don't have
not
to worry about the
beholden
window
to the
anymore.
orbits. Yeah. Yes, yes. Now I remember. That's true. That's true. And not only that, but just going to the moon is a mundane business trip. Anybody can do it, and you can have
Yeah,
vacations up
there's
there.
reality TV on the moon now.
Yeah, and so the space
God help
elevator
us.
would be a good
Yeah,
is a good would be a good idea of that. Oh, you just take an elevator to the moon. And you're
Mhm.
fine.
oh
Not
man.
really to the moon, but to a little craft that takes you, ferries you.
I mean,
But Trishan Mendoza says, I didn't have too many sociological ideas. The writers always surprised me. Expands that mundanity with the damn Stargate. I didn't see past season 1 of The Expanse. I still need to see it. I didn't know it had a Stargate. I think does it really have a
oh, you're
Stargate?
talking about they have a ring gate in it later, but that's a spoiler.
Yeah, that is it. Well, it's fine. I'm going to still enjoy it either way.
Yeah.
That's allowed. I I was just curious about that. And he said, For All Mankind should end 7 with us getting the first images of Proxima Centauri and stop to
Yeah.
big sci-fi punchline of wow signals or aliens other than
Yeah.
microbial.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that would be good unless history changes that in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And going back to the characters in the show, all the Baldwins, as we said before, Ed, Kelly, Alex, obviously are staying on Mars. Ed isn't only staying to keep away from the repercussions of his actions in season 4, but because of those actions, he made it possible for Mars to be a viable place to live by leading the mission to keep the asteroid and control that resource. With the prophets coming to Mars, the colony that Dev wanted will begin to thrive. We already saw that was proven by the very last scene.
Mhm.
Helios will continue, and the only question is who's going to be the leader on Mars. I can't quite figure that out yet.
I don't. You know who I loved in 4th season was Daniel Stern as the
Yeah.
head of NASA.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
I thought he was great. I mean, he's probably too
Yeah.
old to come back, but
I think they're going to have him come back next season. Actually,
He was
I
a
really
sort of
loved him.
cantankerous, politically led type, wasn't he? And sort of juggling
was
agendas.
well, I think
great.
he's based on Lee Iacocca, so I don't know if there's going to be like he leaves NASA or like because I think we're kind of the opinion that Gore is going to get to be a one-term president in this timeline. So where does he go after that? Because usually the NASA administrator pretty much leaves with the outgoing president, so you don't stay over unless the new president says like, "Oh, we'll keep you." But
Well, some of them do in For All Mankind. Thomas Paine did.
well, he went from being a Nixon guy to being a Reagan guy, so that makes sense. But I think my thing is I can see him ending up on Helios's board and doing something with that since he's already a corporate guy.
Right. Yeah.
And he got he got Danielle back to Mars, so that I like him too. Then we also have I love Margot, but obviously her protege is going to be I can't wait to see how Aleda behaves because she finally committed her first act against NASA when she prevented that asteroid from heading to Earth. So
Oh yeah, she's in big trouble.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what's going on there.
Interesting.
I mean, she might be up on treason for conspiring with the Russians, in a certain way. I mean, it's who knows.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
not only that,
but Margot took the blame for her.
mhm. Yeah, that's true. And then I mean, you have Dev and all the the Ghost Ops guys where they've literally done this thing that's going to make all the world's nations have to invest in Mars. So now they're all on Mars. Earth, what's Earth going to do? They can't like really do much, and so it's going to be fascinating to see
we
how that
see the
affects.
results of that investment in the final shot with that big giant
Exactly. Yeah.
asteroid base or whatever.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, because now Earth's not going to get any profit for years.
Well, I'm curious how that changes the economy of Earth when you have so many resources in something like that. Does that change Earth's economy or not?
Yeah, I mean,
it will, but it'll also increase their exports.
Yeah, I mean, even beyond that, I think it would give because I mean, my dream of it is to like they all end up on like O'Neill cylinders, and they're like that's where the Earth and Mars or Earth and the Moon kind of have their. That's where a lot of the people end up. and moving heavy industry off the Earth and into space. I think
And then
would
we
be
get to
interesting
Mobile
wrap
Suit
things up.
Gundam.
Well, yeah.
All
Then we
the-
find out it's like
the sides,
yeah, it's a secret Gundam prequel too.
the Principality of Xeon gets to start.
That's where we're going. That's where it's headed.
I'm in.
Don't you think it would be funny if final episode of season 7, wherever we are, Mars or Saturn or wherever the furthest is we've got, and there's an orbital space station, and you pan round and you see suddenly they're building the Enterprise inside, and then boom, cut to end credits. That'd be a great link. Then it would be official.
It's better than anything they've done
no,
since
it can't.
2017 on that show.
As much as I want that, it's not possible because Star Trek is already a fictional series on For All Mankind, and they've already
It's
done
true.
some movies.
But I mean, there's open, game on like an affectionate parody. I mean, John Scalzi did it with the red shirts. I mean, we don't have to go comedy wise, or anything, but we can still have an affectionate, nod to Star Trek in some manner.
It could be one of Danielle's dreams because she's Trekkie.
I mean that too.
So, and there are other characters that I'm interested in for season 5. Samantha spent so much time in season 4 following the rules until she finally did help lead the strike that and Dev ultimately took over. But that all brought her into making up the history of Mars, and she chose the side to help Mars grow. But it required some acts of sabotage that the U.S. government, spoken for by Eli Hobson, likens to terrorism. For those just tuning in, Sam endangered the crew of the Ranger by engaging in the last-minute, non-planned EVA, and so that and she jury-rigged the switch. It was all part of the plan to keep the asteroid surrounding Mars, and the commander then of course stepped out and tried to stop this by pushing her away from the panel, which nearly killed her, but she also nearly killed him as well. And so we end that drama with the commander just dangling on his tether, just very near the exhaust where we saw the cover incinerate. So by some miracle, both are still alive at the end of season 4. So what happens from that? On top of sabotaging the equipment in order to keep the asteroid in Mars orbit, she pushed the commander, and that's something that she might have to face consequences for. Of course, that leads me to wonder why in season 4, I did wonder why Earth couldn't just come and get the asteroid. Like, why couldn't they just say, "Hey, this is our asteroid," and get it back? But
that's a tough thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess
Physics are working against you on that one.
You can't just put the A-team in a shed and have them build a contraption to come and swoop up the asteroid.
Yeah, I suppose so. The limitations are what helped the show.
Even if the shed is full of power tools, they would have a hard time constructing something to get that asteroid, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, they said between that conversation with Aleda and, Hobson and everybody, that if they moved the asteroid into Mars orbit, that they wouldn't see a return on investment for like 40 years. So I think that's going to help kind of like stretch, whatever they need to do for the remainder of the series. But because I remember they were saying if they moved it to Earth orbit, then they'd see a return in like 5 years. So I don't know. There's no way to know if they're going to do a thing where they would move, like another asteroid is discovered and they can move that one into Earth orbit or not. But
yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, they also would have technology would have been developed too, so they'd have new mining technology and all kinds of things.
Yes. She reminds me that you could call a ship Enterprise without mentioning Star Trek at all, and in fact, that's one of my favorite things in season 1 is that they say, "Oh yeah, the Enterprise." is on doing missions and everything, which is really great because in our reality it was just a prototype just sitting around looking pretty. So it was great that it actually got to do missions in the For All
Yeah, I
Mankind
mean,
universe, and
there's
definitely
precedent in our world. It'd be easy to do that. You know,
Yeah.
the first ship to Proxima or whatever is called the Enterprise.
Yeah.
that would
there
be
you go.
cool. That's how you fix that. Well done.
There you go.
Deanna Troy says, "Don't go criticizing my counseling techniques." Okay. Oh yeah, well, if she wouldn't rely so much on her superpowers, I would
Or
listen.
stating the obvious.
Um, anyway, there's also Miles, and we get to see Miles go from that everyday man into a crime boss in season 4, and Ilya ends up saving Miles from his torturers, the CIA, the KGB torture. Um, so I'm wondering if this is going to strengthen their bond in season 5 in some way. It didn't seem like Miles was successful bringing anyone from Earth to Mars during his reign alone, but somehow at the end of season at the end of season 4, lots of people are brought from Earth to Mars at the end of the episode, including Lee's wife, as was promised. So is this indication that Ilya used his connections to risk smuggling people?
I think Miles
Maybe.
is gonna be one of the great first Mars entrepreneurs because you know he's the everyman. He's going to be a self-made man. He took the risks. He won some. He lost some. But it was the everyman ingenuity. That was another thing about this show is that everybody's sort of included. You don't have to be like when he first gets to Mars, and there was that class struggle sort of between the blue collar workers and the scientists and the astronauts. But what you realize is that society doesn't work without the blue collar, and it doesn't work without the salt of the earth. You need all of it. And I think Miles is the key to bringing a balance to Martian society, because one of the things about Martian society is you don't really need great wealth, because what do you buy on Mars? You can't buy a chateau anywhere. You can't, you know, there's no beachfront property. You can't take great vacations. There's no bespoke tailors. There's no Picassos on the moon.
Not for 1,000 years once the terraforming's done, maybe.
Right, exactly. And so what's interesting is that you need, as much as you need astronauts and scientists, you need people like Miles to make civilization work. So it's going to be really interesting. I mean, especially now there's this idea that, you know, kids, is college as valuable as it used to be? These are questions we're asking ourselves now. And are we going to bring back trade schools? And
Did you see the South Park episode about that?
No.
Robert? Oh, you need to watch that.
That was a great episode.
Yeah.
Really but that, you know, that could be a course of storytelling that they could. I mean, South Park is they're the best about doing stuff like that. But I always liked that about, you know, it wasn't necessarily as much of a workers unite, you know, a communist uprising, but about the fact that civilization can only exist without all facets of. You need the people that could build our infrastructure as much as you need the people that plan the infrastructure. And that's something that we forget, especially here in America. And we saw the results of that when you forget we have our election turned on what I would call the salt of the earth, the backbone of America.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think the idea of having like blue collar astronauts as a concept. I mean, I've always wanted to write a story where there's like people just doing like work in space, kind of like I don't know if you've heard of. I mentioned it in another stream, but it's Planetes. It's like a manga and anime, and it's like these basically space debris haulers, and that's their whole job. And that's the first time I ever saw, like visually, blue collar workers doing a job in space, and I want to see more of that.
And you're right about the change in the way we learned. And Arthur Clarke wrote a book that I read when I was a kid, and I thought, oh wow, he's telling the future, because I didn't know reality from fiction. And he said we'll be learning all our whole lives instead of just when we're going to school, and that has come true. We can learn almost anything given you know, the information age.
That whole thing is basically based on the idea, you know, like even in real life, you know, lifelong learning is a thing, and the internet has allowed that to basically always be a thing.
Yeah.
And then we can move on to the what the repercussions are from everything from the end of season 4. Had had what happened on Happy Valley happened on Earth, there would be lots of people going to prison, but how do these laws apply to people on Mars? Helios was basically allowed to treat their workers like indentured servants, which is something that would have been highly illegal in the US, but it bothered me so much in the last season, especially when Dev went in and waved his wand and was like, "Oh no, it's okay now," and everything was fine suddenly. And
Yeah, this is a
I'll
test.
treat you like human beings now. Now people at the base committed sabotage against NASA, the M7, and Russia. So now that they've won, will Earth just let them off the hook? Treat them as yeah, and recognize them as an independent entity. And will we get a more hopeful version of the expansion, which is something everybody's been talking about already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Greek letters is kind of saying something that I don't think is going to happen
Sure.
because Ed's there.
Right.
Oh, dictatorship?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ed
No.
Ed will not allow that to happen because he, like me and most other people, don't like what communism means. Even the whole show is based on the idea that you go to into space, and they landed on the moon and said that they were doing it in the tradition of the Marxist Leninist way of life. And I feel like the whole show is basically showing you that that capitalism, when it's at its best, it can breed innovation and competition, or competition breeds innovation. And I think
100%.
that is what I take away from it.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's absolutely true. How do you have a dictatorship when you don't have resources?
Yeah.
You can't. You need all hands on deck to make life on Mars work.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's not going to be like the Red Faction games at all. It's going to be more like what you see in the Kim Stanley Robinson books.
Yeah, 100%. And they've got the resources now to do it. They trade with Earth. They can probably, they're, as evidenced by the last shot of the 4th season, they've probably now have an incredible industry built up around everything they need to do to make sure that Earth is supplied with whatever they need to, and keeping them. And by the way, it's in Earth's best interests to let Mars work as well as it works. And they're probably going to be, it serves as a launching point to explore the rest of the inner solar system or outer solar system. And I think it works better for everybody. It's just the fact that they didn't have to play politics on Mars. They made a decision and did it. They weren't mired down by.
They controlled their destiny. You're right.
Yeah, they didn't argue. I mean, the retardation of our political systems on Earth happens so much because our inability to compromise, and people will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and nothing gets accomplished. And there's so much graft, and you have to pay lobbyists, and everybody wants their taste, and the unions and all that. But on Mars, they're probably figuring out a way. Hey, we have to, like what Elon Musk did with SpaceX, we got to be able to move.
It's a very good answer to. Yeah,
we have to be able to move, and in an instant. We can't wait for somebody to tell us what we can and can't do.
Yeah.
And I think that was
you're
evidenced.
Right. It's symbiotic.
It is, and that's why I think that Mars. I want to look at it I want it to be optimistic, and that's why I think Miles will play a part, because as a leader, as a leader of labor, one of the most important things in a new colony is labor. You have to have people that will build, and I don't think they're going to have. I mean, sure, robotics is going to play, automation is going to play a big part, but on Mars, automation is difficult. That requires lots of manufacturing, and until they build those, but maybe that's part of what it is. They're going to have, and robots would be working side by side with humans because, again, all hands on deck. So it'll be interesting to see how
and the robots are going to be allowed to be more advanced than the ones that we have, because we saw in season 4 that they have those kind of dog-looking robots that are searching.
They have robot
for
dogs 20 years before we do.
Yeah.
So, and that's current technology. So season 5 is going to exceed gonna exceed us.
And can you imagine if you had robot technology knowing what young Miss Baldwin's looking for? You could have those
Mhm.
kinds of robots scouring the planet, scouring Mars to look for any evidence of
Yeah.
microbial life or whatever, to have that
Could
kind
end
of
up like
automation galloping around the
yes,
planet.
yeah. I mean, you could have something like I know I reference a lot of stuff from the '70s sci-fi, but like Silent Running, the
It's
Huey, Dewey,
Dewey,
and
and
Louie
Louie.
robots.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have those guys going around scouring the planet.
Although they're a
I
little
can see
slow.
that.
Yeah, I mean the ones we'll see are probably gonna be faster, but yeah,
And they'd stop to play cards.
yeah. There you go. That'd be lovely.
Do you think they'll
That'd be a
do
good
anything
homage.
with do you think they'll do anything with AI?
I think
the
they're going to
show?
have to.
Yeah,
I think if they ignore
definitely.
it will lessen the realism of the show. So
Yeah.
I feel they are going to have to do something with it.
Something, yeah, it's something that can also exceed our current technology, also because we know that is that's their progression so far, and I'm glad you mentioned that Earth and Mars, the peace between them would be mutually beneficial. Because I had a more like political answer to why Earth will let them off, which is because of the front page article that we see in season 4, where the front page article is not about Margot's capture or the return of Danielle or the others from Mars. It was about the news that someone had been severely tortured at Happy Valley, and the focus
Mhm.
on keeping Happy Valley happy in order to avoid the CIA or KGB from taking
Yeah,
responsibility for their actions.
Yeah.
yeah. I thought that was like a nod to Abu Ghraib and like the stuff that was going on in like Guantanamo. I think that was kind of the connection to that, but also
Yeah.
it kind of feeds into that larger theme of workers' rights and people being treated fairly for their work and their labor.
And the thing about it is, war in space isn't very practical. If you have only
Right.
2 ships, one will lose and the other one will win. But when you have entire space colonies, the somebody going in, I mean, we saw that in the first couple of seasons. We saw how war in space it's devastating for both sides. And I think that you're not going to see like the Space Marines from Earth show up en masse to take Mars by force. I think
Yeah.
it's too pulpy, and it doesn't make a lot of sense when
Mhm.
things are working.
Yeah.
I mean,
Misunderstandings can still happen.
it's true. Oh,
Yeah.
of course,
But not like that. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't mean
Yeah.
like a force. They're not going to send like a nation state over to take over Mars. I think what they would do, what's more, is that Earth captures its own asteroid and then destabilizes the economy of Mars. What does Mars do when their products aren't necessarily needed? They have to find
Mhm.
other buyers, which maybe would
Cool.
help other groups establish colonies and things like that. But I think that's what'll be interesting to see how that all works.
Yeah. How they
Yes,
pivot.
absolutely. That's one of the things I did have in my notes, is that Goldilocks isn't the only asteroid we've got.
Yeah.
There will be more. Maybe one that will be maybe a threat to Earth or something.
Well, I mean, I think the cool thing would be
But also
it,
no
yeah.
longer. It's now we can control that.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
think the cool thing would be if they delay the discovery of another asteroid until like season 7, and now the economy of Mars has gotten a chance to build and kind of be more self-sufficient, so it can survive on its own, even if they have this other asteroid come in. But it would still destabilize that whole economy. But it's all about how Mars ends up pivoting in the end. And I think you're going to end up with 3 long-running threads throughout the entire remainder of the show. You're going to have the stuff on Mars. You're going to have the stuff with private companies or even other nation states pushing even further to get to Saturn, and then you're going to have the stuff on Earth, which is stuff I'm kind of interested in too, where you have fusion has changed everything. The United States is slowly but surely transitioning out of fossil fuels. It's
Yes.
now you're going to have these people out of work. So I feel like you're going to end up with a situation where these people are going to like clap back to this whole, space industry. And
Yeah.
I don't know what that'll end up
Yeah,
looking like,
that
but
makes
I think
sense,
it'd be
and
interesting.
then people be more attracted to that idea of
And what happens to the Middle
exploration.
East?
Yeah, there you go. I mean, we're
Well,
kind of already seeing that too, because I think in the beginning of this season there was like reference to like fighting happening in Riyadh because they're
Yeah.
they're moving away from fossil fuels. So yeah,
I mean, and that's we're going to have to deal with the Middle East in one way or another, because eventually we will wean ourselves off fossil fuels because fossil fuels eventually will run out.
Yeah.
So, you know,
yeah,
and
whether we like it or not. Yeah.
yeah, whether we like, and
Eventually.
I think that like the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia knows this, and that's why he's interested in bringing his country in sort of more in line with the West, more in line with the modern world, and the conflict within the Middle East. It's going to be interesting to see if they play with that. The fact that some forces, you know, want to drag the world and keep it in the 14th century Sharia law or whatever, and then others are going to want to modernize and join the space program, join the space race, and then what happens to that area of the world?
Oh wow. I
I
hadn't
think
thought
they'll
about that. Yeah,
realize
like
that they're holding themselves back.
Well, I mean, yeah,
yeah,
I mean, we're seeing it now. It's very interesting to watch. I mean, if you take the situation, if you remove what you have with Israel is you have a modern, technologically advanced nation that's a pluralistic parliamentary democracy, and then it's surrounded by the countries that were created out of the Muslim conquest, you know, from 1,000 years ago, where
Mhm.
you and a lot of those forces would like to have imposed Sharia law, make the worldwide caliphate, and get rid of the West and get rid of and Israel's on that front doorstep. But in a way, we're watching that take away the military conflicts. One of the things I remember hearing or reading a Syrian dictator, this is a long time ago, it's not a Syrian dictator, a Syrian diplomat said one of the reasons we hate Israel so much is they've done in the desert what in 70 years, or actually it was probably 50 years when I read this, in 50 years what we haven't been able to do in 500. And so that
Yeah.
we're going to be dealing with that on Earth as well. Half the planet is going to become technologically advanced and go to space. They're going to have all these resources, and then you've got a country like what happens. It's like when technology becomes obsolete. If you're it's like coal mining. You know, you've had coal mining as a vibrant, long-standing industry in our country, and then when suddenly coal is we have to get rid of it. We have to get it pollutes the environment or whatever. What do you do with all the coal miners? The same is true of truck drivers. We're on the verge of you have an entire industry, truck driving, that is the backbone of this country in terms of getting things. I mean, there's the rail industry, and then but trucks are the backbone of making sure goods and services get around the whole country. Well, what happens when you have literally millions of people that work in the trucking industry that are displaced by automation? When trucks are now, what do you do with those people? You know,
Yeah.
where do they go? And I think a lot of what they're going to deal with in moving forward is how do large swaths of the population suddenly adjust to a way of life that is beyond their grasp? How do you take care of those people? You know, what do
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
do?
yeah. So far, Miles is our biggest example of that, and before that, we mostly just see a lot of protests, and so it
Yeah,
makes sense
Well,
for
I
season
mean,
5 to dig into that much deeper.
yeah. I mean, I do kind of see Alex, you know, Kelly's son, kind of do this. I feel like he's going to be the one that we're going to shift gradually from Ed's point of view, and then Alex is going to become like the de facto main character, and
That
then
reminds
that's
me. No,
going to be
Philip, you're
through
right,
the whole rest of the
because
show.
there was that scene where Dev and Ed were talking about model building, and maybe and Alex did that at some point, and that does something to Alex.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
he's going to be another blue collar astronaut.
I mean, that's the thing that I really love about this show is it shows how humanity has to deal with these huge turns of events that are revolutionizing in a very short period of time our way of life. And we I mean, we don't even know how social media has and the rise of the internet over the last 25 years, what are its long-term ramifications. I mean, we're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of it. You know, people are reading less. We know in higher education there are kids that are going into Harvard and Yale that can't even get through a whole book because
Unfortunately, they're still reading, but they're reading the internet. They're not reading novels, books, and I think
Well,
that's definitely changed.
as somebody who's like in education and doing all that kind of thing, you know, as my day job, you know, aside from the you know, the writing stuff I do on the night, it's, you know, I've seen a lot of stuff where kids are coming out of high school. I mean, I taught a class where I'm, you know, helping kids go from high school transition into college, and it's like, you know, there's a disconnect between what they're doing at the K through 12 level, and there's a disconnect between that and the college level, and how you reconnect that is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and we're going to be this country is going to be in a world of hurt in 15, well, even maybe 10 years, where we're competing with people that are incredibly highly educated. The Chinese are making sure their population is incredibly highly educated, whether it's arts education, mathematics, engineering, and our country, everybody wants to be an influencer.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
so true.
And
ultimately, you're right.
Although, yeah, but some people who are trying to learn from it also, and it's not always just wanting to gain any kind of notoriety from it, but to expand.
Well,
It's also a great communications tool.
yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
I was being hyperbolic, but where are STEM leaders of tomorrow, both male and female? We
Mhm.
need thinkers. We need people that
Yeah.
are innovators. If you look at I was reading an article about the Silicon Valley and what gave birth in 20 years ago to Facebook, to Google. We don't have new innovators under 30. There are a few, but not
Mhm.
nearly
Makes
what we
sense,
had 20
yes.
years ago. And that's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Well,
It's
I think a lot of that's kind of, a symptom of, the wider systemic issue in this country where, you know, education is kind of de-emphasized to a lot of people because they feel like it's pushing an agenda, it's doing whatever it is. And I feel like for me, I want to get back to, my whole purpose eventually is to get a doctorate of education. I want to build my own educational curriculum, and I want to, base it around like practical life skills, creativity, critical thinking, and civic engagement. And some people are looking at me with these ideas and they're saying, "What are you thinking? Like, this is crazy. You can't do this." And I'm like, "That's what makes me want to do it."
Yeah, of course. No, and you're
I
right. I mean,
do I do have a computer science degree, although I'm not quite using it at this juncture, but it's something where I think eventually we should have that as a basic course for kids to at least get into it a
Yeah,
bit.
that too. Practical
And
life skills too.
and
but
um
but
scratch at MIT, I show my kids that, and so they get the basic understanding of how to think logically.
Hmm.
but the thing is, like Tristan is saying that reading, he says getting through. He says here, I would say that reading with a shorter attention span, getting through a book isn't efficient. I want data, but that's not what reading is all about anyway. There's
Yeah.
different things that reading does
Hmm.
on a three-dimensional level for your brain.
Yeah.
When you're reading one of the great novels, I think that's really the point and that's what's happening a lot in education as well. People just want an answer. They want to Google
Hmm.
an answer and they don't understand how that answer was arrived at.
Yeah. They don't
The-
want to live in the moment. They don't want to savor like the words of great writers like
no,
Hemingway or anything like that. And it's like me as a person who's going to grad school for an MFA in creative writing, people look at me kind of funny all the time. But like you have to marry reading and writing because both are going to be ways you can communicate.
well, and it's really interesting. Like I see a lot of a lot of, like, you have a lot of young people now that want to be progressive and inclusive, and all those things are great, but they want them now.
Yeah.
And they're like, we just want the world to be this perfect world that we want to live in. And
Yeah.
they'll march and they'll join they can be useful idiots and be manipulated by a lot of powerful forces they don't even know have been manipulating them. And
Yeah.
so they've been born and bred to expect results immediately without any understanding. It's like doing a math problem and not showing your work. You
Yeah.
showed just the answer, you copy off, and the whole point of math is not the answer. It's the process of getting to that answer.
Yeah.
And if
That's how
you
the
don't,
yeah.
yeah, and if you don't know that, if all you have is an answer and you don't understand how you got to that answer, you don't know anything. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's like, if we don't know how to manufacture a car
Mhm.
with all the myriad ideas and principles that are used to build a car or build anything, a building,
Yeah.
take your pick, where are we going to be? And right now, our colleges are turning out not enough of those kinds of people, whereas in other places in the world, They certainly are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
the,
Learn how to think is vital. And
I mean,
Lance, I'd like to hear from you, Lance. I haven't heard
Yeah, this
from you
well, I
you've
was
been a
in a
gonna
little
while,
quiet.
and I need to step away for just a minute. So I will be
Take your
right
time.
back.
Sure.
And Lance, start us off.
My analogy of this is Lord of the Rings is a great way of doing the analogy for this. The younger generation want to get straight on the Eagles, grab the ring, ride straight to Mount Doom, drop the ring in the fire. They don't want to
Pretty
take
much.
the long, arduous journey where some of them might fall by the wayside, but learn all the valuable lessons that journey entails. They just want to
Yeah.
get straight to the top. I mean, I see
Mhm.
it. Rob and I could go on about this all day. I see it in my industry all the time. People
Well,
doing
it's
making one short film that's okay,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
because they fit a certain profile that is required or is wanted by certain funding bodies or institutions, boom, the next thing you know, they're directing a feature film for Netflix. They have not been in the
Mhm.
trenches for more than 5 minutes, working their way up the ladder to key positions. I mean, a producer friend of mine, I can't say who worked on a high profile show, which is a co-produced show between Netflix and two other very big channels. She had exactly the same problem with this. For example, her at one point, she had a key head of department. Again, I won't say who was fostered upon her, and this person did an absolute terrible job. They had very limited people skills, and if you're an HOD on a television show that's producing a set number of episodes within a year, high turnaround, and you're in charge of a particular department, you've got to have good people skills. That's one thing that needs to come with that job. And when I looked at the chain, let's call it the chain of evidence as to how this person ended up with this job, it just didn't hold up. And that was a prime example of someone getting too far, too fast, too quickly. And you know what happened? She actually, credit to my friend, again, who I can't mention their name, but she said, right, this person has to go. And the powers above her said, no, we can't fire that individual. Well, I am going to fire them, and it's either them or me. And if it's me, then my last act is that I'm going to fire them, and then you can fire me. So they backed down. She did fire them. She got them replaced because the show got 6 weeks behind because of this individual, because they weren't doing their job properly. Why?
Yep.
Because they didn't have the experience. They'd gone straight from kind of runner to HOD of a specific department within 2 years. That was their experience. That's not how it's done, man. That's not how it's
Well, I mean,
done.
there's something to be said about, being thrust into the position and, not being qualified. But there's also another thing about, certain people that are qualified that have been, sent into certain,
You can
organizations
listen,
to do things.
you can do that. You can do that on a small independent film, and
Mhm.
that's where that can kind of happen and often does, because you're not spot for choice. But on a big budget production where you've got to be used to working in that environment, and you've got to be used to working to those pressures and those budgets and those deadlines, and delivering and communicating and doing your job in a certain way. And if you're not someone who's been in those trenches, and you're going from, I've worked on a short film, I've done this, and suddenly you find yourself in that job because of a series of circumstances that you're ticking the right boxes, shall we say, and suddenly you're given that job for all the wrong reasons, you are going to have to sink or swim. I'm not saying some people won't rally and do a really good job in that circumstance. There are some people that will, but this person was not of that caliber. And it was very obvious from day one. They should have never been given that position. So this happens all the time, It's
been happening. I think that it's going to start to change because it's cost so many people so many dollars.
Yeah, it has. It costs that show lots of money.
In the entertainment. The funny thing is, like I've told people, because I've worked in the entertainment business now for 3.5 decades. I started out as a PA, production assistant, and I knew in my mind when I started, I would be getting coffee for people. That was it. The first 3 years, I probably wouldn't be making a lot of money. I'd be working really long hours, but that was part of it. I'd never been on a movie set before. I'd gone to film school, but I didn't know what it was like to be on a Hollywood film set. And the first set I was on was Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. I
Right.
was the art department assistant. I was working 6 days a week, 20 hours a day. I was exhausted. I learned more on that movie about how to work in film, how to work in the entertainment industry, because I kept my mouth shut and I asked people what they needed. I got there early. I left late. I busted my ass, and it was an incredible experience. And I've told people, look, you've got to go in at the entry level, and you've got to learn the business from the bottom up. Otherwise, you will not succeed. And nowadays, that mentality is almost gone. And it's something that is really detrimental to. That's why I believe in, if you get a job, if you're a kid, get a job where you're doing something, like whether you're plumbing, whether you're doing HVAC, whether you're building houses, where you're actually learning a system from the bottom up. And any job, any kind of a profession or anything that has a system, which is whether it's manufacturing, whether it's the creation of anything, that you have to start in one place, build some kind of a foundation, not just with a house, but anything, whether you're going to publish a book, how does that all begin? And when I was in school growing up in our public school system, we taught those things. I was in wood shop, and there's things I made for my mother when I was in the 7th grade. She still has to this day. And you learned how to in our shop, we made everything from tables and chairs to stained glass windows, where we learned how to weld lead. We used not a welder, but a what's it called when you're melting, soldering iron. Yeah, we were learning how to solder to make stained glass windows. I would never have done that growing up had I not taken that class. But I've used that skill since then on other projects, like, for instance, wiring an electronics board for a model spaceship. You bring it all the way back. I mean, if right now I'm building a 4-foot model of this space battleship Andromeda from Space Battleship Yamato, and it's there you go. And that's we're not teaching those things anymore.
I mean, like, right when I got into when I graduated high school back in 2010, there was they'd just gotten rid of auto shop and like a pottery thing, and they were like, we're going to emphasize nothing but STEAM or STEM, and I'm like, that's kind of dumb. You can't just do that and just expect people to be like very smart but not really well-rounded people, and that's not what I want to do. I mean, I want to emphasize a balance between the art and the sort of scientific minded things. I think that's the perfect
that
balance.
makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense to learn woodworking, plumbing, electronics before you become an architect.
But for all mankind, the people that are going to Mars, the most valuable people are the people that are the most well-rounded.
Yeah,
and you're going to need people that are multidisciplinary. That understand, if you understand mechanics, and you also understand science, and you understand computer programming, and you understand orbital velocities. I mean, to have all of those skill sets would make you the most valuable kind of person up there. And I think that, look, as we move through the world, we're going to be in a world of hurt for a while. I mean, I'm not going to see it probably because I'll be shuffled off the mortal coil. But the next 50 years of human history are going to be very tumultuous. Assuming we don't destroy ourselves, and assuming disclosure doesn't happen and we end up with the 3-body problem, but assuming we prevail, and I believe that we will, there's going to be a lot of aches and pains for people. And society is going to go through massive shifts.
What's a 3-body problem? I haven't heard of that.
That's referring to a TV show.
Yeah, well, it's actually a Hugo Award-winning science fiction series of 3 books.
Yeah.
But
there's actually a controversy about that too.
There you go, Rob. There's my 6-foot Super Star Destroyer that I built in 1990.
As Hans Gruber said in Die Hard, oh, that's beautiful. I used to make models when I was a boy. No, that is fantastic. What did you make? I
thought you'd like to see that.
I do you still have it?
It's in my friend's loft. I do have 8 of the smaller ones the control tower is actually the conning tower is actually from one of the Revel kits.
I've got
8 of the Revel Star Destroyers still that were painted up all for this same game. Don't know what happened to the backdrop with the Death Star, which was like our screen that it was hidden behind when we had it on the table.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, there you go. That picture's in my book.
Yeah.
Just found that
Trishan
the other
says,
week.
I got mine. Yeah, that's awesome. Trishan said, I got mine. Robert, teaching by doing is a good example there. I read Python programming books, but if you don't sit down and make projects to practice, you're screwed and won't know what you're doing later. And yeah, you got to practice, and the best way to practice is to make something that you want.
Yeah, very
Mhm.
true.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's one of the great byproducts of For All Mankind, and the same was true of classic Star Trek, is that it showed how valuable people with multidisciplinary abilities were or are.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, and what's so odd to me watching, not to slam modern Star Trek, but I don't believe any of those people are capable of being on a starship. You know,
No,
whether it's
oh,
Discovery or Strange New Worlds, I look at these people, I'm like, I don't believe any of you. You know, I don't believe you don't act like anybody that I've ever met that has any. It's just people just have those abilities because they have those abilities where you don't believe that they've. I don't believe that
you don't know where they came from.
Yeah, and watching the way they act, I'm like, I don't believe any of you would be in a quasi military command structure because no one ever listens to the captain.
Beverly
Well, I
Beverly
think a
Hills
lot of that comes from
90210 in space. That's what that is.
Well, I think it's worse than that in the sense that this is what happens when you hire mostly TV writers who didn't work on science fiction
Or have read
and
science fiction.
or that too. And that's why I would like to get back to. I mean, if I was running Star Trek, it'd be a whole different thing. But I'd be doing what they did in the animated series, where I'm hiring actual, like you're hiring Larry Niven, you're hiring all these like great science fiction luminaries.
They
and
did that in
trying
the
to see what
original
you can do.
series.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Well,
that
see,
too.
Star Trek writers are making things. The show we're talking about, of course, is written by Ronald D.
Right, but that was a
Moore,
different era. Ron Moore
and
didn't
oh
grow up
yeah,
with Joss Whedon and Buffy, where every
No, but
modern show is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
but I mean,
oh,
even
but what it could do is what the Next Generation did. It had some authors from the original series, and it had new authors, and the
Mhm.
authors from original Star Trek, not original Star Trek, but 90s Star Trek, could do the same thing here, where they're mentoring newer authors and
Mhm.
and telling them which books they need to read or what to learn and what shows to watch to get
Yeah.
inspired to make good Star Trek. I think it's still possible to
Oh, it
connect
is.
back to the threads of Gene Roddenberry's DNA, of his ideas, his ideals.
Well, I mean, I think that the key. I mean, even Ronald D. Moore had some issues in the Berman era because I mean, I feel like they should have let Ronald D. Moore a little more loose on the Star Trek franchise, and they didn't quite do that. And I think the franchise would have been better for it if they had.
They
Yeah,
stifled
agreed.
him a bit for Voyager, and it should have been a different.
Well,
There was a
also,
different thing.
you know,
They killed their own premise.
Rick Berman was very rigid in his thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a studio executive that didn't. I don't even think even now, you know, having interviewed him 10 years ago for all the DVD, for the Blu-ray
Mhm.
special features, it was interesting. Like Star Trek to him was a job.
Yeah.
He got a studio job. He was out his way out at Paramount. He got this job. He got that job because nobody else wanted it, and he
Mhm.
took it to keep his and yet he's a man of he produced Big Blue Marble. He's a man of great taste. He likes to travel the world. He likes the finer things in life, and he got saddled with making a show that wasn't his thing at all.
Yeah.
But he understood that it was someone else's thing, and he had to keep it the way it was supposed to be. So his thinking about Star Trek was very rigid because he never watched Star Trek. And
Right.
so he was looking at it from a production standpoint, not from a standpoint of imagination. So that's why Star Trek was very rigid, even in the way it was shot. You know, it was very,
Mhm.
the way it was shot, it was very, if you look at it, it has a house, especially Next Generation. They changed it with Deep Space Nine, but it has a house
Mhm.
style that they never really deviated from.
Yeah.
So it
Business
has,
wise, he was good, but creativity came elsewhere for sure.
and that's another thing about For All Mankind is it definitely, I mean, Battlestar Galactica pioneered different
Yep.
ways of shooting, the snap zooms, for instance, the combat
Mhm.
photography that was popularized with Saving Private Ryan. They added that to
Mm.
Galactica to great effect. You know,
Yeah, that worked
45-degree
That
shutter
worked
angle.
really well in Galactica. Really
Oh
did
yeah,
like that.
because the space shots, they were able to add something that we'd never seen before that
Mhm.
gave it that realism. You know, it was almost that
Yeah.
there were combat photographers in space shooting our Vipers and Cylon Raiders and base stars, and it was really a interesting way to go. And no one had ever done that before.
No, I mean
That was
that you know, the 2003 Battlestar Galactica is, you know, my favorite. My dad grew up with the, you know, 1978 one, and that show's definitely special to me for that reason too. But you know, I think the new Battlestar is definitely an example of how you can definitely upgrade something the right way.
Yeah, I mean, look, I grew up with Battlestar Galactica too, but even I'm like in the pilot episode, so all humanity's been destroyed, and now Starbuck's talking about seeing these four-eyed, two-mouthed women and putting them on the
Yeah.
circuit. Like,
Yeah,
what
and Caroline,
circuit, dude? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, where are we gonna what entertainment, or where are we gonna take these people? You know, it's just
Yeah.
it was such a silly. It was, even though I watched it, and some of it was really cool, but
Yeah.
and the designs were really cool, but it was sort of, you know, silly.
I mean, it's definitely of its time in certain respects, but you know, there's a lot of good in it. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
Ronald D. Moore, I
I
think,
know
is
what you mean by
is
silly,
a
but
is a treasure in the genre.
Yeah.
yeah, so it was some good writing. It was fun, but yeah. Oh, and what are we talking? Oh yeah, and then the last bit of notes I have here was about Danny. We all saw that Danny ended his own life, but whether he had saved up his rations and let the oxygen run out of his suit, like I thought, to help the team survive, or what, like Philip said earlier, if they ate him. Well, no matter what really happened to him,
He is gone.
he's got a daughter. He's left his wife behind and his daughter, and we
Mhm.
know that Danielle is really connected to them. They're like family. They're pretty connected. So
Mhm.
so I'm interested to see what happens with her. Same for any of the other young characters we've left behind. I think I think that can. I'm sure I could go back and find some other characters that, you know, oh, look at that kid. There's just a kid there, but now they're going to grow up, and we'll see what's going on in that case. And that's mostly what I had to share today. But if anybody else has any more predictions they want to add, or anything else
Well, I
they'd like to
mean,
talk about, you can.
I'll
I
let the
still
other
have
people on
some
the panel
time.
before I go. Yeah.
I still have another some time. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't have any more ideas other than what I've already said.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
And in
I think
terms of
there'll be quite a high death count in this season, so no change there.
Mhm.
Probably get a
It's
couple of new. I think we might get a new, really good new guest actor. I think we'll get a couple of new, really heavy hitters cast wise. I'd like to see that, new characters. You know.
Yeah, they do a great job casting this show.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
casting. I
And-
mean, very rare that I watch the show and go, "Oh, that actor's a bit weak." Even in the
And
small
what's
parts, they're so good.
what's really, really, really great about the show is that the directors, they come back. They're recurring directors,
Yeah.
and they
Mhm.
do several episodes, not just one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, the
very
directing
consistent
blocks.
quality all round, really. So, you know, long may that continue. Wasn't it me that first said to you, Jill, you should be watching this show? I'm pretty sure it was me.
You were definitely one of the people who who recommended it to me, and Robert Meyer Burnett also recommended it to me.
Yeah.
Lots of people. I could come up with a list of people who said you got to watch the show, and eventually it just became overwhelming, and I thought, damn it, okay, fine, I'll see what this is. And then I knew I had to have I knew I wanted to watch it with my friends here on the internet, and see what I thought of it, and thanks for talking about it with me.
No problem.
This was a
Thank you.
great honor and a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very
Yeah,
much
oh.
for having me on, Jill, and also letting me
Yeah.
plug the book, which is very kind of you.
And thank you for letting me co-host with you all these episodes.
Yeah, it's an honor and pleasure for me to to be able to just all of the ideas we came up with today. I wouldn't have been able to think of all of them on my own, and that's the beauty of this kind of discussion. And Trisha Mendoza says one thing that For All Mankind is good at, it isn't based on books, so we can speculate. Yes. It's not based on books, and it's written by somebody who knows where they're going, which is a rarity.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. And
Yeah.
and
I mean, I only have 2 final little predictions, and that's about it.
oh, you do? Okay, go.
Yeah. So my first one
What's your
is,
first one?
I think season 5, episode 1 is going to be the second pilot, and it's gonna basically set up the final 3 seasons. And I think what we're gonna see is a mix of what we kind of discussed a little bit. I don't think anybody's gonna die, at least from the get-go. I think there's gonna probably be a major death in that season, but I think it's gonna be a build-up, kind of like how the seasons have been going, and that major death will come probably at the end of season 5. And then, like, my absolute final prediction would be, I think season 7 ends in a way that's similar to the end of season 4, where somebody's going to be standing somewhere and then looking off into, space, probably from maybe Titan, and that's going to kind of like visually say that now you stand upon one world and you look beyond it to the next one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Titan's really interesting because it's got an atmosphere.
Mhm.
And then him says, "I love it when R&B goes on smaller shows." Great stuff. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rob.
I
you
like
gotta come on my-
I like going on shows when I get invited.
Rob,
it's
you
an
got to come on
honor.
my channel sometime, man. You need to come
Oh,
on.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to hear about your
Well,
experiences and stuff.
yeah,
Well,
we'll
my
think
channel's
of
a little too small, but I'd love to invite you.
I'll go. I love having these kind of conversations.
Yeah, no channel's too small, man. I've said to you before as well. You're welcome on mine any
Well, I mean,
time. I don't
but yeah, you're
care how
different,
many
Lance, and I appreciate you
subscribers
for doing so.
people have. That's not about that for me. Yeah, no, do come on, and I could do an industry interview with you. Actually, that would be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to talk about that. I have a low budget indie film that we have coming out called White Devils, and then
Perfect. Let's tie in with that.
Yeah, my audio drama True Noir that I've been working on. We dropped that. And even though it's just an audio drama, it's one of the biggest things I produced, directed it, and edited it. And
Speaking of which, this is the perfect time for you to talk about all that stuff, all the cool things you're doing that you want to share with people before we.
Oh, well, this is kind of weird. Like,
head out.
I just like to make stuff, and I ended up I do this physical media show every week. And as a result of that, there was an author named Max Allan Collins who he wrote the graphic novel that the movie Road to Perdition is based on.
Oh
And
yeah, I've read that.
yeah, he's written a series of books about a character named Quarry that Cinemax made a series about. And he's written a bunch of different novels. He's written movie novelizations. He wrote Batman for DC Comics. He's written a comic book called Miss Tree, MSTREE, about a female detective that he wrote that comic for the better part of on and off for 40 years. And he and I got connected through a mutual friend because he was going to write a letter to me. And then we started talking. We really hit it off. And he said, we started talking about wanting to do something. And my business partner said, we should all do something together. And we decided to make an audio drama of his. He's written a 19 novel book series about a private detective named Nathan Heller, who begins as a 26-year-old police officer on the pickpocket detail in early 30s and late 20s Chicago. And he's written these 19 novels, and this conceit of the novels is that he's a fictional character, but he gets embroiled in real life historical events that it's not quite decided what actually happened. And so he's written stories about this character getting involved. And the books, he started out in the mid 80s, and the last book he wrote, the 19th book, was published not this past October, a couple months ago, but October of 2023. And so he suggested adapting those. And I said, that's interesting, because I love noir, and it's kind of, the idea was it's like Chinatown. The tone is like the movie Chinatown or LA Confidential. So I coerced him into writing the script to adapt his own book. So he adapted his book into 10 chapters, about 300 pages of script. And at first, when I had to do a proof of concept, because I didn't know how to make an audio drama. So I asked some people I knew, and Todd Stashwick, who played Liam Shaw in Picard season 3, I asked him, and a couple other actor friends, and we did a really cool proof of concept back last year that came out in December.
Could you put a link to how we get that, a link that we can
Oh yeah, it's
Um,
just a proof of concept. But yeah, I'll
oh
do
no,
that.
I mean the audio drama. You said we could listen to these episodes already.
Oh,
Right?
it's not. Yeah, it's the episodes drop on the 13th, and you'll be able to
Right.
get them
Oh,
everywhere.
okay.
So when I read the script, I was like, okay, I can't ask my friends. I had to hire a casting director because the scripts were too good, and we decided, okay, we're going to make an independent movie. It's just you can't see it; you can only hear it. And the approach to the writing was it's written like a screenplay. So Todd couldn't do it, so we had to start over from scratch. And so some of the people in the cast are Jeffrey Combs. If you're a Star Trek fan, he played Weyoun and Shran on Enterprise. Bill Sadler is in the show. William Sadler was Sloan on Deep Space Nine, but he's been in a million different movies, including
Yeah,
Die
Bill
Hard
and
2 and
Ted.
Shawshank
Die Hard
Redemption.
2, bad guy.
Yeah, so we have Sloan. Katie Sackhoff is in the cast from Battlestar Galactica. So,
Okay.
and we have Vincent Pastore from The Sopranos. C. Thomas Howell is in this. Jesse Spencer, who played one of the Australian doctor on House, who's now in Chicago Fire. He plays Elliot Ness, and
Oh,
so
he's adorable. Too
yeah,
bad
we
it's
have
not visual.
we have 25 actors that you would know. So we cast it like I dare say an A-list movie or an A-list TV series. And Michael Rosenbaum, who has the Inside of You podcast, who played Lex Luthor in Smallville, ended up becoming the detective, Nathan Heller. And so and Anthony LaPaglia plays Al Capone. He was going to be Al Capone. Well, he was Al Capone in Road to Perdition, but they cut his small part out because it didn't really fit. But I wanted to get him back and was able to get him. And we have, I mean, the cast is incredible. And so I have been recording. How you do it is they were all over the world. So I had to record people at different times. And then I've been editing it all together. And the first 3 episodes, it's going to be about 7 hours total. But the first 3 episodes, Act 1, we're going to drop Act 1 because they'll take place before Christmas, but they take place before Christmas in 1932. We're going to drop a week from Friday. And I hope people like it because I've never done anything.
Where are you going to drop it?
It'll be everywhere where you get podcasts, but it's a premium podcast. So because it was expensive to make it's $2.99 an episode. So, you can sample it. If you don't dig it, you don't have to continue on. But it is like a TV series. It could be, if we filmed this, I could film every episode and it'd be a great streaming show. But that's because the script that Max Allan Collins wrote is so good. And we were able to hire actors when you hear these actors like Jeffrey Combs, who plays the mayor.
He can play anything. He's an amazing
All these actors were just incredible. Katie Sackhoff will break your heart. She was so great to work with. And it was interesting because when we started casting this, it was like my casting director really loves actors. And we talked about Longmire, the TV show Longmire.
Oh, yeah. Great cast in that.
And Katie Sackhoff is tremendous in Longmire. And of course, my casting director hadn't watched Galactica. So it's amazing. And it was really incredible. And so my philosophy behind, I edited this, I told you, this Netflix show called Dota Dragon's Blood, this Netflix anime series. And the actors, like in traditional animation, you don't usually get actors together. But in this show, if you didn't have the sort of frisson that happens when actors are acting with one another, this never would have worked because I have 10-minute long scenes where characters are talking to each other. So I always had other actors acting opposite the actors we were recording. And so that has been the whole thing, is to make it sound like it's there. And it sounds like it's a movie. It's not a book on tape. It's not like your standard audio drama. We approached it like it's a film. And it sounds like it's a movie. It's fully immersive. It has 5 hours of original score, which is something you don't normally hear. The score is incredible.
Very, very cool.
It's as a matter of fact, I can
duck out because I'm on another stream in 16 minutes.
Oh yeah, I got to duck out too. But so that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
You'll be able to get it. It's called True Noir: The Assassination of Anton Cermak, and you'll be able to get it wherever your premium podcast, wherever you get podcasts, beginning like Apple Music and stuff, on December 13th. And the first
great.
3 episodes drop, and then the remainder start. You get them every week starting January 10th.
Very good.
Oh, January 10th. Oh, very cool. And yeah, I think I'm interested in that. That sounds really fun. I mean, Jeffrey Combs, you had me at Jeffrey Combs.
Oh,
Lance,
he's incredible. He's
Jill,
incredible.
thanks so much for
Lance?
having me on. Rob, great to meet you again. We have been on.
Yeah,
a stream
congratulations
before.
on your book, man. I can't wait to read it. It's going to be here Saturday.
Well,
the
I think you're the
hardcover.
first person to have bought it on a live with me, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, there you go. You got the number one spot. Philip, great.
I will buy it in just a
See you.
It's on Amazon. It's on American. It's on Amazon.com. You have to
Yeah.
scroll down a few books. It's not on top yet because it's brand new. But
Yeah,
I'm sure.
well, we're gonna make it on top.
So I'm aiming to get 100 reviews on Amazon by New Year's Day. That is definitely doable. So if you buy the book, the most important thing is please leave a review. Also, send me a picture of you with the book. I'm going to create a big poster of people holding the book, and like I did for my first novel. Yeah, and I'm going to be on Tomby's stream in literally 15 minutes, and then I've got the stream of my own at 9:15. Again, kind of a soft launch for the book because that stream was supposed to be this Sunday, and then I rescheduled it to next Sunday, and then suddenly the book was available. So, Amazon never know what they're doing. But yeah, and I've got about 7 industry interviews lined up between now and Christmas. Everybody from DJs to independent filmmakers, a couple of writers are coming on. So yeah, I'm supporting independent creators constantly on my channel. If you are an independent creative with a project, be that a book, play, film, music, whatever it might be, board games design you're doing on Kickstarter or something, get in touch with me via my Twitter account, Lance Nielsen WD. If you're not on Twitter, you can contact me via the Outcast Creative Facebook page. And yeah, Silver Screen Journeys out now on Amazon.com or Amazon.co.uk, depending on where you are. Thanks very much, Jill.
Awesome. You're welcome. I can't wait to read it. Thank you. And
Thanks,
we will have speaking of promoting your book, we will have a stream where I'll have you on and we'll talk about it and get people excited about it.
Thank you.
I'll let you know when. I think I might have to move the date I said. So
yeah, that's okay. And because I mean, you may want to have a chance to read some of it as well. Course,
yes, I do. I absolutely do want it.
Maybe we can schedule it in that weird period between Christmas and New Year where no one quite knows what day it is. All right. Yeah, let me dash. But thank you so much, and thanks to everyone in the chat. I really appreciate the support so much. I'll see you soon.
Of course, Lance.
Yes, please check out this
book.
And check out Lance's channel too, the Outcast Creative. Really, really great. And since I'm big already, I just wanted to say on let's see, Friday. Oh, I think I'm gonna talk about family because I talked about Best of Both Worlds, so I'm gonna finish that trilogy. So we're gonna have fun with that. Just a nice short review, just to have a fun Friday. And then on Tuesday, it's gonna be my birthday, and so I'm gonna talk about one of my favorite childhood movies, which is Stay Tuned. That's gonna be fun.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. Oh wait, yeah, and then Nightmare Before Christmas for the 13th for that next Friday, and that's what I got going on. I'm sure I got something else going on, but I'll tell you guys later when I remember it. And then was there anything else you had, Rob? Because I kind of had to rush you off to
I mean
Lance
just
leave.
True Noir, and then this movie White Devils that's based on a South African playwright's play. We're finishing that. We just finished the trailer for it, and we have a distributor who's interested in putting it out, but I don't know what the disposition is of that. And then our other movie, Tango Shalom, we just sold to Univision. So it'll be playing all through Latin America. Yeah. Or pardon me,
that's great.
because of October 7th, we had to retitle the movie. It's no longer called Tango Shalom. It's called Forbidden Tango.
Wait, you had to retitle it completely?
Yes.
Well, that's wild. Okay.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. And it was interesting. So when you're an independent filmmaker, you make a movie and you dream of releasing it theatrically. Now, here's what's really interesting. So here we made a movie that while it's about a Jewish family, the whole point of the movie is to foster interfaith dialogue. It's about a Jewish rabbi who has a crisis of faith, and he has to consult other religious leaders, like a Muslim imam, a Catholic priest, a Hindi mystic, and on this quest that he's been put on by God, or so he believes. So when we made the movie, it had its world premiere in Jaipur, India, which fascinated me, and then it played in Turkey, and then one of the coolest things was it played at a Muslim comedy film, an Islamic comedy film festival in Rabat, Morocco, which is ongoing. I didn't even know there was a comedy film festival in the Islamic world, but it is, and
Me
there
neither.
is.
I didn't.
And
Fascinating.
it not only did it get in, but it won the audience award. And then the coolest, craziest thing that happened was that the Pope blessed it in the Vatican newspaper for its interfaith dialogue, to foster dialogue between all the different religions and promote peace between them all. And it opened in 50 cities in Germany on October 5th of 2023.
It's great that it's such a hopeful
And
movie.
well, yeah, and then what happened was October 7th happened. The terrorist attack in Israel, the slaughter of probably the most barbaric attack, other than the Rwandan massacre, probably the most barbaric attack perpetrated against human beings by other human beings certainly in the 21st century. So what happened was, immediately the protests against Israel hadn't even retaliated yet, which tells you something. Suddenly the anti-Israeli protests that erupted, which by the way have been fomented for a long time, for the last 25 years, the groups like the Muslim Brotherhood have infiltrated campuses on the American college campuses. So anyway, very organized. They were ready for all this. They were protesting in the streets of Germany, and there were cops Germany has a federal police force, not a city by city police force. So our little movie, this independent little tiny film that I spent quite a few years getting made, that was supposed to foment and interfaith dialogue, basically how everybody has value and let's be nice to everyone, is now there's guards outside of theaters because people are protesting, and it's a Jewish themed film. So let's just say our theatrical release in Germany was curtailed, and we lost our TV deal, which it had huge economic impact on us being able to pay back our investors. And it was we're still trying to figure it out, how to. So you never know. So,
well,
but if you see it,
hopefully
it's
there's
called
some hope in there
if you want to watch a little
little
comedy, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Peacock. It's called Forbidden Tango. It's just a funny little family comedy. If you like things like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and you like Dancing with the Stars, Karina Smirnoff, who was on, I think, 20 seasons of Dancing with the Stars, is one of the co-stars of the movie. So, hey, Forbidden Tango. If you want to put a smile on your face, watch it. And if you hate it, you can come back at me.
Okay, so I got to remember a new movie name, and I still need to see it. And
Forbidden Tango. Yeah, you can see it. But it's it's interesting. You never know when you try and make a movie where it's going to wind up.
Well, and it's a shame that reality isn't quite matching that.
No. So our next movie, White Devils, is about it takes place in 1988 South Africa, and is about the legacy of apartheid. So hey, which is ironic considering people think that Israel has an apartheid government, which couldn't be further from the truth. And you have South Africa. I mean, for me, it's a very weird place to be, because you have South Africa accusing Israel of being an apartheid state. And I made a movie that's one about Judaism and the other one's about apartheid South Africa. So, boy,
as far as reality goes, I think people should be able to have their own, opinions about the state of geopolitical affairs without having to worry about.
It gets back to that whole. It has to be a dialogue, but some people don't want to have that dialogue.
I just think I need to get back to making science fiction and horror movies.
Yeah,
I support you.
Maybe that's what you said after you made your last science fiction horror. That I got to get into the real world.
Yeah, the Hills Run Red was much easier to make and get out into the world, and nobody was mad at you. So.
Yeah, precisely. And okay. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Somebody says Israel does have apartheid. No, it doesn't.
Okay,
Israel does not have apartheid
Greek letters, Larson. I don't exactly want to get into that particular debate, today, so please let's not
The thing
get
is,
there, go there.
but
Please.
I think it's important though that people understand what apartheid is, and
Oh yes, definitely, and
it's
it's awful.
apparent to me that a lot of people don't know what apartheid is. You
Yes,
know,
it's
the thing
a
about the apartheid government in South Africa was it
discrimination.
prevented half or the majority of the population from participating in government. You know, they were literally, and that's there's nothing like that in Israel. People just say apartheid. They don't understand what it means. But the South African apartheid government was very discriminatory. It was horrible.
Yeah, and I do not want to get into I don't
No,
do
no.
politics on my channel,
No.
but
Yeah, of course, of
I
course.
don't mind people talking about it, but let's make sure to attack the philosophy and not the person.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
if
I
it's,
know, but I mean,
we
obviously,
should redo that.
geopolitics is definitely, you know, that's why I'm gonna stick to horror and science fiction from now on. But that's another thing. I would encourage
And
people,
that's why I have to kind of police my chat sometimes.
but I would encourage people to read. You know, when you hear
Mhm.
these buzzwords, when you hear any kind of in any kind of business or any kind of industry or any kind of political situation, do yourself a favor and do some research. Do the reading
Mhm.
because it's always more fascinating than people understand. And unfortunately now it's very easy when people have watched TikTok videos or people watch and they haven't done the reading. History is fascinating. And I would encourage anybody that has any, if you can't argue your position from a place of knowledge, it's never a good thing. And I would just say, whatever your beliefs are, whatever they are, do yourself a favor and do the reading. Get into it and really try and understand what it is and why it is you believe the things that you believe. If you can't explain them to yourself, you certainly can't explain them to other people when you're called upon to understand or to be asked, why do you believe the things that you believe? And
Yes,
that's all I
yeah.
would ask of people is to educate yourself.
It's to have the debate with yourself first. I definitely agree.
100%. And you know what? I love debating with people that are on opposite sides. Like I
Mhm.
went on to a very hostile I know these guys they live in Sweden. They're Islamic and we were going back and forth and one of them was a big fan of mine that's ended up he said he hated my guts. But then he came back and said to me, "Why don't we have a conversation?" which to their credit was great. And we had a really productive, interesting conversation. And that's the whole basis of my
Good.
entire YouTube channel is that let's talk to each other. You
Yeah,
know,
and yeah, and I'm definitely inspired by that. That is good stuff. And
yeah,
I
and I think that
appreciate it.
and we need look, we're stronger with one another than without one another.
Mhm.
That's the lesson.
Doomsday Machine.
What does Kirk say to Captain Decker or Commodore Decker at the end?
Mhm.
You know, we're stronger with you than without you. He tries to
Yeah.
stop Decker from
Yes,
ramming
I
that
got you.
shuttlecraft,
And
even
he
though it
does,
gives him
and
the
he
idea of,
does.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Commodore Decker.
Commodore Decker,
But
Commodore Matt Decker, father of
yeah.
Will Decker.
Mhm.
Oh, that only
Yeah,
in the
very true.
novel, but I guess it's true.
Come on, man. It's
No,
canonical because Roddenberry wrote that novel.
It's true. It's true.
exactly.
It
That's
wasn't
true.
ghost written. He wrote it. He got paid
Speaking of
$450,000.
novels,
Yeah.
I do want to give Phil a chance to talk about things that he's doing. I think you're
Yeah.
writing it. Are you writing a novel? I forget what you're writing exactly.
I'm constantly writing a book of some kind, but the biggest thing I'm writing right now is called Explorer, and it's essentially like if Star Trek was happening today. So the whole idea is this third generation astronaut is um, assigned to be the first commander of this interstellar mission, and it's set in like an alternate 2026. And so in that way, that's the connection to For All Mankind. Is it too is sort of an alternate timeline, but I've been kind of writing this thing since I was like a kid. So I was watching Stargate SG-1 at one point, and I was like, I want to do something like that, where all the stuff that you have in Star Trek happens right now in real time, and I'm going to try my best to kind of do that in Explorer. And yeah,
That's
I want to
cool.
kind of I want to harken back to like the 70s, 80s, 90s stuff I was growing up with. So we'll see how that actually turns out. But yeah,
Don't
beyond
give
that,
up.
I'm yeah, definitely not. We're rebranding the channel. It was originally Fleet Admiral Levi. We're going to probably pivot to something else. It's going to be more lore based, where we're going to explore more world building, and I want to kind of have more conversations about certain worlds that are throughout fiction. Be it science fiction, fantasy, or horror. I want to explore it all. But
Great idea.
I think the only thing I want to leave everyone with is a quote by Isaac Asimov. Individual science fiction stories may seem as trivial as ever to the blinder critics and philosophers of today, but the core of science fiction, its essence, has become crucial to our salvation if we are to be saved at all.
It's a great quote.
I love that quote. I love that quote. Stargate SG-1 uses that at the end of
Yeah,
the
they do
the
at
series. I love
200.
that. It's
Yeah, no,
fantastic.
it's my
Oh,
it's a
Fierce
favorite.
Adventures is here. Oh, right, and definitely I want to say goodbye to the chat, everybody who was here. I think I
Yeah, thanks,
almost had
chat.
everybody's name down. I'm not sure if I did, but part-time planting. I hope you listened to this on the replay. I know you just posted a chat before it started. Matt G is Swift -1, Tristan Mendoza, Lemon Pie, Gorillas, Censored Thoughts, Deej Odyssey. Raj Star, Gavin Blackburn, Brogu, Low Specs Linux Gaming, DJ Knight, Canadian Spider Man, who has a wonderful travel channel. You want to go around the world, go to his channel, and those streams are amazing. Greek Letters Larson and Max Redstone, and of course, one day I'll be comfortable with that. FKHC 2005. And I'm so glad that you guys were here to contribute to the conversation. I loved all of your chats. I wish I could have read them all. DJ Play says, I missed this show, but I have really enjoyed the series review a lot. Thank you for all your time and dedication, all of your endeavors. You rock. And hashtag respect. And DJ Play definitely, this one is really great on the read, and I think this is one of my best live streams. I really, really enjoyed where it went and how it flowed. And Christian Mendoza said if Watergate happened 6 months earlier, Nixon resigned, Spiro Agnew would be president and started nuclear war with the Soviets because he's bringing it back with
Well, actually,
politics
Agnew
of
was
the
a very
time.
big
Oh my
proponent
goodness.
of Mars mission, so it could have been there could have been a Mars mission in the 80s with him.
Yeah, I mean, nuclear war to unleash nuclear apocalypse is never a good thing.
No.
And I don't know if that we'll see. I mean,
No, hopefully that does
God
not
forbid. There's no.
Yeah.
If you want to know anything about nuclear war, there's a British movie called Threads from the
Threads.
1984. I everybody seek it out. They re-released it on a beautiful Blu-ray. I don't know if you can call the movie beautiful, but it's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in my life. But it's a great movie.
Have you ever seen Where the Wind Blows?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's another one.
Yeah, that's a good one. But that's animated.
Yeah, that's the only difference. But
yeah. But it's great. Grave of the Fireflies and Where the Wind Blows. There's a double feature of happiness.
Only watch it when you're depressed.
Yeah. It'll make you feel better.
Okay. So that's helpful. Schindler's List kind of. Okay.
Oh, it's worse than that.
Worse than
At least in Schindler's List, the world didn't come to an end.
Basically, yeah.
Well, okay, I got some recommendations. That's another thing I really love on my channel is to get some new recommendations, and I appreciate that. And now my journey is complete. For now, we're putting a bookmark in For All Mankind, of course, because we have to wait for season 5 to come out. And this was some production information I forgot to mention is that Cynthia Wu, who plays Kelly, she writes in between seasons and just for her character, she actually has a character journal where she writes about. I hope one day she releases that when everything's finished. It sounds really great, and I'm sure. I don't know, and that was the last note I had. And I'm glad I had it here at the end. We went over some awesome possibilities for All Mankind, and I just can't wait to see what's going on with the science fiction and everything. And season 5 that can inspire humanity to move forward. And oh my goodness gracious, what are you doing to me right at the end of my show? Okay. Oh, here we go. Swift -1 leaves a member chat. Thank you so much, Matt G, for being a member for 13 whole months. Oh, that's over a year. When are we doing Unification and TJ Hooker? Well, we can't do those all at once, but I think I'm actually gonna, because it has some filth in it, I'm gonna cover it during a shore leave because I don't I like it, but there's some Star Trek Discovery in there, so anything Kurtzman I don't make a big fuss about, but I do really enjoy the heart of it there's a whole that's a whole nother live stream, like you're saying. So
I got a
we'll get into it.
copyright strike on my YouTube channel because I made a supercut. Well, I didn't make it. A viewer made a supercut, and I put it up of all the different Otoy shorts, and Otoy gave me a copyright strike.
Oh yeah, I remember I saw that on your channel.
Oh,
Yeah.
copyright
And I was
strike?
wondering why
A
that was.
strike?
After 100,000 people
Horrible.
watched it, they were not.
Yeah,
Oh my
They were not
God.
happy, and it was pretty cool too. I mean, it was. And the funny thing was, I've been covering Otoy on my own channel for the last couple of years, and I'm a huge proponent of what they're doing. And you know, the walkthroughs of the whole enterprise. I mean, it's what they're doing is amazing. But they apparently when they released Unification, it was unlisted, even though everyone was sharing it, but it's still an unlisted video. Well, mine was not unlisted, and they didn't like the fact because there's a nebulous, even though they have the blessing of Paramount, there is nebulous copyright issues because even though it's the Roddenberry archive, the underlying rights to Star Trek are obviously you've got CBS, you've got Paramount. That was a whole collision of every one of their copyrights. So they didn't want people.
Yeah, they have to be careful. Okay,
but everybody in the world has done their own
strike?
supercuts of that thing now, and they're not getting copyright strikes.
Well, at least they should have done a claim, a strike that was going way too. That's an attack. Like,
it is, and I've tried to dispute it 3 times, but YouTube has said the same thing. We don't understand. They just won't. They won't allow me to make a counterclaim, which I've never seen before. I've always, whenever I've had a copyright strike, I've always made a counterclaim, and I've always beaten it. This time, they refuse to allow it, and it's so weird because clearly, I put up the copyright notices. It's not monetized. It was transformative, fair use. You know.
Yeah, well, I found that fair use doesn't mean anything when a copyright holder wants something gone, they get to have it gone. As far as my channel is concerned.
It's true. Well, you have to do something transformative. So anyway, I do have to go too, but this was a great show. Thank you for having me, and it was great streaming with both of you. And how fun this was, and I hope somebody doesn't get mad at you for my political views. Come and attack me on my channel. I'm happy to do it.
Well, Robert, I have you on. I have you on Facebook and I have you on Twitter. I'd love to invite you on the show next year.
Oh, I'll be on for sure. Absolutely.
A part of my channel is allowing anybody to express whatever opinions they like, as long as it's not, any kind of hateful thing. And you did that, and so I mean, you didn't do the hateful thing, but
No, I don't.
You did just fine.
I don't hate anybody. I love people. Although I'm a snob about civilization. I'm a civilizationist. I want to see us progress and move to the stars.
Yeah, and that's what For All Mankind is all about, and that's why I really love it. It's so great. It's best sci-fi of this current century, I think. And I love it, even though I really love the Orville. This is really good.
Yeah,
I mean, the key to all of it is essentially, I think somebody said, authenticity is the currency of the 21st century. So you got to be honest to yourself and honest who you are.
I did say that.
I have to think. Be Yourself Adventures for a $1.99 super chat, and usually I play a video of some kind. Let's see.
But I must go because I have to make a business call. But I have to leave.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Well, it's been fun,
right,
Robert.
Everybody.
We'll see you.
Live long.
Okay. Bye. See you later,
prosper.
Robert. Thank you so much for being on and giving me all the time that you could.
Oh yeah, this is fun.
I hope the call goes well and you have
I hope so. Well,
have a great rest of your week.
We get audio drama notes, so I have to listen.
That's great. Oh, hey, production stuff.
Yeah,
that's good.
I'll see you guys later.
We'll see you. Take it easy.
Bye. And thank you so much, Larry. He said, Be Yourself Adventures. And I want to play some clips for you for that super chat, $1.99 super chat. And that's going to be, let's see. He says, it's Larry. And what can I say?
You have a point there.
And why not some dancing?
getting to the point of saving for retirement now. Did I lose you, Jill?
Oh, retirement? Oh
Yeah, I was
no,
saying you're getting closer to retirement with $1.99.
no, kids college education.
Okay. Okay.
Just don't tell them. I don't. Be Yourself Adventure sends a super sticker too. Thank you so much for supporting my channel today. That is really generous of you. He says behind the scenes. Yes, we got behind the scenes information about True Noor, and I'm actually now kind of interested. I was interested in it before, but
Yeah, he posts some stuff about it on his Facebook, and I've been kind of keeping track of it,
mm.
but I haven't done anything because obviously it hasn't come out yet. But
Oh yeah, okay. Phil cut out there a little bit. I think
oh,
he lost internet a bit.
oh,
And you
oops.
back?
Can you hear me now?
Or maybe my internet funky. I don't
But
know.
you can
Do
hear
I
me
cut?
now.
Have I been cut? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. No, I
Thank
hear
you
you now too.
so much for that super sticker. And then yeah. So I'm interested in that too. We'll see where that
Mhm.
goes. And I love radio
Mhm.
plays. Are really a lot of fun to listen to,
Yeah,
and
I
it'll
think
be it's pretty cheap comparatively for an
mhm.
audiobook is concerned if there's
Yeah,
only a few episodes.
true. I mean, I think I mentioned in a stream before that I contributed to a Kickstarter for they're doing John Carter of Mars as an audio drama, and I decided to donate probably too much money, and now I'm a producer on that, and I think that's pretty cool.
You're a producer on what?
So John Carter of Mars audio drama.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Who's
it's
Oh, right, because it's public domain, so anybody could make a production
yeah.
like that. And who's making that?
Actually, I think it is done by I think it's associated with the Burroughs family, if I'm not mistaken, but it's done through a thing called Pocket Universe
Oh,
Productions, and
that's cool.
it's got Sean Patrick Flannery in it. Tim Russ and Bruce Boxleitner are contributing voices to it, so that's gonna be exciting.
Oh, Tim Russ, that's awesome.
Hmm.
I don't even have that clip in here anymore. Um, oh wait, maybe I do. Um, no, I don't. See, I want to see if I can find it in terms of I had a Tim. Well, I have this Tim Russ clip. It's not it.
You're
Maybe
talking about the yeah.
not exactly the one that I wanted, but uh,
It's good enough.
mhm.
Do not mistake composure for ease.
Yeah, it's good.
So there you go. So Tuvok is going to be part of a John Carpenter from Mars um, radio play.
Audio
So
drama. Yeah,
audio,
no, it's gonna be pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been contributing to a bunch of different Kickstarters over the past year because I want to kind of put my name on a bunch of different things, and that's one of them. But yeah, I think it's going to be good.
Okay. Here it is. I found it. I found it for you. Oh, wait. Here it is. Here's the Kickstarter campaign. Is it going on ongoing, or is
No, I
it?
think we sewed it
Oh,
up on.
you already finished it already. Oh, hey, and it got a lot of support. This
Oh
is
yeah,
I didn't know you were doing this. This is pretty cool.
yeah, I was
Um,
doing this. I don't really publicize that I do anything like this. I mean, I
mhm.
only publicize it when I know that something like tangible has come from it, like a credit or some kind of a
Yeah, well, it looks
thing
like this is gonna
on social
happen.
media. Yeah, and yeah, I'm excited to see. It says that it's going to be released like July next year, so that should be interesting.
Yeah, I'll put that in the chat if anybody's interested in that. I might bookmark it myself,
Mhm.
especially if you're a part of it. That'd be cool to know
Yeah,
about it.
I'm actually kind of
Mm.
curious to see if they've put my name on it just yet. We'll see.
Oh, well, there's the
I think I'm
website.
only, I think I'm only a handful of people that went that high, but yeah,
Hmm. I
like
don't
as
know. I think
producers,
the website isn't very expensive. So
well, they probably,
there's just a little place to put your email if you're interested in it. And so
mhm.
yeah, so you get newsletters for whatever updates they have. So
Yeah.
maybe
I
I'll
mean,
do
they are
that.
still far out before they release it, so
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as that progresses, when there's some news, we'll bring it up again.
Yeah.
And that's really 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 cool. So we've got lots of cool, really amazing things going on. I'm not doing anything quite that impressive. I'm just here online
Well,
being a fan, having fun, talking about things I love. And,
I mean, that's the best thing to do. I mean,
mhm.
I'm gonna try to do that more next year because I feel like my own live streams have been kind of falling off, mostly because of the holidays. But
Right.
I'm
Well,
gonna invite
and
more guests on.
building an audience, building a community. It's a task, and
Yeah.
it's and all you have to do is keep putting out things that you think are important, or sharing from yourself, and see what comes of it, and figure out what works. I know it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing comes easy that's worth it. So I mean,
Mhm,
challenge always makes it more the fruits of it more
definitely.
enjoyable. So yeah,
But
it'll
for
take
now,
time, but
yeah.
yeah, we'll get there.
And in the meantime, you're doing some really important stuff. It sounds like some good, interesting
Yeah.
things. But for
Yep,
now,
we'll definitely
we're
do
gonna put a bookmark in our For All Mankind journey. We'll see you
that.
in 2025. Obviously, I'm gonna see you on Friday. We're gonna talk about other stuff though. For All
Yeah.
Mankind was gonna take
For All
a little
Mankind's
break here.
2025. Yeah.
Yeah, sometime in the summer, hopefully, if not early fall. I and and so yes, when we went over some predictions for All Mankind, and we'll see where it goes from there, and all of the possibilities very soon. This show encouraged me to believe, that we can have the same future if we put aside, our problems. So hopefully we can do that. I do have a lot of hope that space development is going to progress in the coming decade in our reality. And so that's always also fun to think about in conjunction with the show. So thank you everyone for joining me today, and for
Hmm.
being so amazing to me. I will see you all next time,
Yep.
on
See you,
Friday.
chat.
We'll talk about family, and to finish the Best of Both Worlds trilogy. See you later.
Learn all that is learnable. And the ways our differences combine to create meaning and beauty.
It has always been easier to destroy than to create.
May we together become greater than the sum of both of us.
Well, now you have something new to think about. Carry on.
It's what you said there is exactly that. One word is what's missing in my opinion. This is my opinion. Love. I think that's what's missing in Star Trek now. It just seems like a hollow shell with a wind-up key on the back. We can just keep an outlook and hope things change for for the next generations. I'm old, so I know I'm not around, and I know I have the classics to enjoy. I look at the original, right? I look at the original series cast. The way I look at it is like a family to me. They're a family. I was a kid. I used to go hang out at their house every night at 6 o'clock, and they all treated me like one of them. But sadly to say, they've all passed away. Their house is still there. I can walk by and see the house, and there it is. But I know there's different people living inside, and I can understand that. So
Right.
I hope eventually Star Trek will be in the hands of somebody who cares about it, who does have hope for the future, who does want to right straight to the hearts and the minds of the fans out there, and not to the bottom dollar, pretty much.
I thank you.
See you around the galaxy.